never smile, I never smile, I never smile. Sometimes I never smile, I never smile, I never smile. This is I know the story I love, love. This is I know the story I love, love. I'm wasted, I'm wasted.
Fill my beer. I need another one. Pip, where are you?
That's what you get for being the new guy, Pip.
Yeah, Pip, we're all gonna need some beers.
Yeah!
Pip, is my sandwich on the way?
Keith, you forgot your shoes, brother.
We're gonna go for a background and hands out, right?
This one goes to my brother and my sister and my mom and my dad.
Yes, so much good ice cream. Aw,
Every little bit of time now stretched on the run. Been on the other side. Oh, hell, she struck off the post, kissed my lips in the doorway. Grabbed my drink and my favorite thing. Standing on the front porch and she's running back the teardrops. Baby's got him time, real mankind. She opened up her suitcase and out came the window. Grab my drink and not her favorite thing. Wake up each morning and she's lying in my bed. And the sunshine lights and gives me a mighty smile. And I opened up my eyes and her ivy covered body was gentle, stretched, fresh over me. For the efforts of so long, for the efforts when it comes and goes, for a drink kiss my lips and see you my face got lots of mine. I was born out alive in a hospital's crush. I was raised in a mountain town. They all have wings. They can't be down forever. The last 100 years is my life the way it was meant to be. My sister lives in power and my brother a big tree. My parents are sure to swim off the prairie. And my mom turned down to take a seat on the mountain. Grab my drink and I'm favorite thing. Wake me in the morning and she's lying in my bed. And the sunshine lights hits me like a fire. And I opened up my eyes and the ivy covered body was so strange, fresh. I was born out in a hospital's crush. I was raised in a mountain town. They all had a wing. Thank you guys very much.
What's that? Would you like to hear another song? Oh, okay. Jeez. Sing along.
It actually feels like a good time to hit pause, cut over, and drink my coffee on stream. Look at me, drinking coffee on stream. How's everyone doing today? I say that, but I think there's like no one watching yet. But that's okay. One day, I'll be a big stream Andy with millions of followers who will all flock whenever Twitch gives that alert that says, hey, I'm on. And people will come and they will hear all the things I say and they will be much happy and the world will be wonderful. And I look forward to these days. I'm just kidding. I'll always be a small stream Andy because I put far less effort in than I should because I'm not trying to, get paid and make my living doing this. But I do enjoy doing it. I do enjoy having the fun sitting and chatting and talking about whatever comes up and all that kind of stuff. So, if you're watching, I think someone might be watching on the YouTubes. If you are, I will keep an eye on the YouTube chat, but it's kind of difficult because it doesn't show up on my regular chat. It's probably easier for you and super awesome if you hop over to Twitch, because the chat that's like right up there, that will be where your chat shows up. So it's easier for me to see it and interact with it and all that kind of stuff. Either way, welcome. It's theoretically supposed to be a lovely day today. I'm going to celebrate by mowing my friend's lawn because that's how cool I am. I should probably mow my lawn, but I don't care. I had a weird start to my, well, I guess it was last night. I have this neighbor, and the neighbor is, I call him Creepy Neighbor because I've always found him very creepy. He's always been very creepy to my friend Kelly, who lives in the place that's attached to mine. Kelly being a female, and he has done things like he set up security cameras and pointed them in her child's window. So the child's room just has the blinds closed, like super fucking creepy, but nothing you can do anything about, right? And he's had a long and interesting battle with drug addiction. Yesterday night, or about a week ago, I was outside having a moment to myself, and the cops rolled up, and they rolled up pretty fucking hard, and I just assumed he was getting arrested because this would not be the first time he's been arrested. In fact, when we moved in here, I didn't know if I had a neighbor because for a year the place was empty, and it's because he was in jail. I guess he beat up some old guy, but anyways, he's never been a challenge for me. He's never been a problem, but I've never really, got to know him because why would I? Anyways, so the cops came. I thought nothing of it. And then last night I was outside having a smoke and, having a moment of pensive thought. And one of the guys that comes around often to visit him was on the sidewalk outside my place and was like, hey man, can I talk for a second? I was like, yeah, sure. What the hell? The last time I had conversations related to this person was with him. And it was when someone who was staying with him at the time they got in a fist fight and broke his nose. And he was like, I don't know what to do. And I was like, well, don't go in there. Give him time to cool down. He's like, should I call the cops? I'm like, no, never call the cops. What the fuck? So this guy was like, I just really want to talk. And I was like, okay, what's up? And I'm always half prepared, in my neighborhood, if somebody wants to just talk and wants to, get me to go over by them, that it's possibly a fight. But this guy didn't strike me like that. I was still on my guard. But suffice to say, it was not that. It was, but he really needed to talk. It turns out that the cops came flying in because the homeboy was a dead person now. And being a dead person, you don't get a lot of friends visiting. So that's a thing. I guess he overdosed on a bag of bad drugs. So I'm not sad to see him go. I'm worried about the possibility that this will result in, because I think he owned his house or something. So I'm kind of worried that somebody's going to come along and go, oh, hey, we can buy that house and turn it into space houses, but we have to buy the house next to it. And they'll buy my house and I'll be homeless. I won't really be homeless. I'll just have to spend a lot more on rent. Because this place, crappy though it may be, is fucking cheap. And I love that. So hopefully, none of that bad stuff happens and, everything's cool. But yeah, dead guy next door. That was kind of a neat time. such is life. Just taking a quick look. Yeah, it looks like I'm all by myself on the Twitch. I think there's maybe someone watching on YouTube. Either way, I'm just gonna do stuff. It's like you'll notice the cool title bar. It's kind of like down here. I added a title bar so that we can see the things I'm talking about. I don't know why particularly I did, but it just seemed like a thing. So we're gonna update our title, and you'll know what we're about to talk about. Voting real talk. That's what we'll call it. Sure. I'm so good at this. All right, we're going to talk about voting. So we just had an election here in the great country of Canada, from sea to shining sea, which is not Canadian, whatever, shut up. But we had an election, and it went exactly as I predicted that it would. Which is to say that we had, essentially, it was a giant waste of money, nowhere near the kind of waste that American elections cost, because our elections are really, really finite in the time we allow them to go on. But we had been in a situation where we had a liberal minority. The Liberal Party was primarily, that's Justin Trudeau. They were working with the NDP primarily, which allows the NDP, which is a more progressive party, more progressive. They're not like all the way progressive, but they're better than a lot of the other options. So they had a certain amount of power and a certain amount of influence in terms of getting some good actual policies put out into the wild world. And that was a good thing. And I liked that. And I was 100% okay with it. And then Justin Trudeau didn't like that. So he wanted to have an election because he felt that he could shore up some more seats for the Liberal Party, and get rid of the need to rely on those pesky NDP progressives. And it did not work for him. I honestly don't know what the vote change was. I don't think there was a whole lot. I live in Alberta. Alberta is always conservative. Like always. We are Texas, Florida of Canada. And that's just sort of, that's life here in the big shitty. So you cope with it. But I have to crack my neck. Sorry, I know that's disgusting, but it was necessary. Anyway, so the guy who got elected in my riding is the same guy who always gets elected in my riding. He's a backbencher who does nothing and, puts out cute little, hey, how we're doing great letters that come to my house every now and then, but they're always just empty bullshit. So I'm not surprised that nothing changed in that regard. I bring this all up because we have another election that's about to happen. This is our civic election, and I'm voting differently between the two. So I wanted to talk about the difference between voting strategically and voting your conscience. In the federal election that we just had, I voted by my conscience. I personally am firmly of the opinion that, I'm going to cough. Pardon me. I am of the opinion that the decision was already made in my riding, right? I could choose to vote for the Liberal Party as a guarantee that the damn Conservatives wouldn't get in, but the damn Conservatives were going to get in. And the breakdown was pretty clear. I'm not going to bring it up because whatever. But yeah, I knew that our elected dude, whose name is Len Weber, he was going to win. So voting for the Liberal Party, the message that kind of got sent out a bunch was, if you don't vote Liberal, then you're guaranteeing that the Conservatives will win. Well, in my rating, the Conservatives were going to win. So I voted NDP. The only other option was the Marxist-Leninist Party, who received a whopping 47 votes. And I don't know that I would trust a Marxist-Leninist Party. Despite being a leftist, Marxist-Leninist philosophy, I'd need to know the person wasn't a tanky before I threw a vote their way, right? There's a lot of eerie crossover between people who describe themselves as Marxist-Leninists and people who think that maybe Hitler was onto something. That's a weird thing, but it's a fact thing. Hey, I got a chat message. Hello, sugar. How are you doing today, my darling? It's good to see you. So yeah, I did the vote my conscience thing. I voted for the person who I felt best reflected my overall perspective on the world, and that was an NDP candidate. I knew that it was not a vote that was going to matter, but it was my vote. God damn it, I'm going to do it. And then in this upcoming election, I can honestly say nobody that is running reflects anything remotely like my personal standpoints. At least from a mayoral perspective, from a alderperson perspective, I'm voting for a woman. I can't remember her first name for the life of me. I always fuck this up, but her last name is North Pagan. She's a First Nations woman, and from everything I've seen about her, she is a really phenomenal human being, and I think deserves to be in that position. I'm glad to hear you're good, love. So, mayorally, which is a word, I think, the reality is I have to vote strategically. So, there is no candidate that I've seen that matches my personal philosophy, but there are plenty that do not match my personal philosophy. And the current front runner is a guy named Jeremy Farkas. And Jeremy Farkas, I actually had to dig into this. I commented early on in this process about him, and I was like, he seems really fashy. How do you feel about the current mayor putting his hat back in the ring? I did not know that. Is Nenshi's gonna run again? That would be good news. Depending on how polls look, I would definitely... I'm not a huge Nenshi fan, but I feel like he has done a lot better than the crop of candidates that I'm seeing. My fear would be that Nenshi putting his hat in the running will split the more progressive vote and essentially, give Farkas the nod. In terms of if we rule out Nenshi, because again, Nenshi is not someone who I would support, but prior to hearing seconds ago that he's going to be running, my vote was going to go to Jyoti Gondek, and it was because of a crop of really lousy candidates. She was the most progressive. And so, I got to vote for the best possible thing for me. And really the best possible thing for me is, even if it hadn't been a progressive candidate, was to not elect Jeremy Farkas. Jeremy Farkas is, like I was saying, I was doing some digging. A friend of mine mentioned that he was a 56er. And I didn't know what that means. Let's just take a quick look together on what is a 56er. Allergies are still going all nifty on me, so that's a whole bunch of fun. Where's my Google tab? There we go. Okay. 56ers. Not the Madison fig. That's not going to be clear enough. Why does Google need to know my location? Fuck off, Google. 56ers. What would be a good... is he Bulgarian? No, that's a team. Essentially, yeah, Hungarian. Sorry, Hungarian. My bad. Hungarian 56ers. Okay. So what are the Hungarian 56ers? There's got to be a good... Wikipedia looks like it'll have some reference here. So let's just search for 56. So yeah, in 1956, Hungary was again under the power of a foreign state, this time the Soviet Union. And again, Hungarians rose up in revolution. Like the 1848 revolution, the Hungarian Revolution failed and led to an emigration of 200,000 56ers fleeing persecution after the revolution. 40,000 of whom found their way to the United States, or obviously some came to Canada. And essentially, the 56ers were people who were fiercely opposed to the Soviet Union and to communism. So Farkas's family, essentially, his upbringing was full of very anti-communist rhetoric, and he's got that that vibe of someone who is so fiercely anti-communist that they are actually almost problematically anti-communist to the point of being like fascy. I'm just gonna quickly check my mic. I think I can get better out of it. No, that's as good as it's gonna get. Okay. Anyways, so 56ers are people who have like Hungarian immigrants who fled a communist takeover and the subsequent revolution that they were unsuccessful at, and as a result, 56ers tend to be pretty staunchly conservative and staunchly free market libertarian kind of a vibe, and that's the vibe I got off of Farkas when he first showed up on the scene. I have not seen anything that makes me think otherwise. I think that as a mayor, he would be one of those very troubling, super right wing, why are we going after the unvaccinated when we could be going after China kind of people as a city. So I'm no matter what, my vote has to go to whoever has the best chance of winning against a guy like that. If Nenchi's in the running, I'll have to see how polling looks, and I'll have to see how that affects my decision. But at the end of the day, it's presumably either Jyoti Grondek or Naheed Nenshi who I'm gonna support. I'm not a fan of Naheed Nenshi, but I'm not I don't hate him. I don't think he's done a whole lot of bad. We've had worse mayors, Ralph Klein. That's a thing too. We've seen a lot of people talking about. Maybe we'll talk about that in a sec. About the Ralph Klein thing. Yeah, I'm just gonna make note of that in my stuff to talk about. Ralph Klein. I even spelt his name wrong. Rappelhuh. All right. So yeah, this is an example of me voting strategically, where I may not want Nenshi or Jyoti to be my my elected official, but they are better than the alternative, which would be Farkas and his extreme right-wing take on stuff. So that's a thing. One of the things that when we talk about voting, though, and you always see people going like, if you don't vote, you don't have the right to complain. That is bullshit. I'm going to tell you why that's bullshit. If you don't vote, you are choosing to not exercise a right. That's fine. You don't have a responsibility to vote. I think to a certain degree, we kind of, sort of do have a responsibility to vote, on a personal level, but not on a societal level. The Charter of Rights and Freedoms in Canada isn't applied based on whether or not you meet certain electoral criteria. All people who live here theoretically are covered by the Charter of Rights and Freedoms as long as they're human. Yeah, now I don't know which to vote for. I feel you, Sugar. Like I say, I'm just gonna pay attention to the numbers and try to figure out which is the best possible option to ensure a Farkas-free future, and hopefully the chips can fall where they will fall, and it will not sort of go bad ugly for me. I'm actually that announcement gives me a little bit of a concern, because Jyoti was actually gaining in polls. She had made, I think she was like 5 points down on Farkas, which is fairly impressive, and there's a large portion of undecided voters. My concern would be Naheed Nenshi taking away from that pool and splitting that vote. So I kind of wish he hadn't said this, or that he made some arrangement with Jyoti to, if it's going to look like, you know, they're splitting the vote that one of them agrees to back off and give the other their support. But of course, that's just silly talk. We don't do that. At the end of the day, one of the things that is really important is I don't believe our individual votes matter. I believe they matter and they're important in the sense of giving voice to your opinion, but I don't believe like my one vote means shit in the grand scheme of things. Whether we're talking about a civic election, a federal election, a provincial election, whatever. My vote is a single voice, and it's part of a giant orchestra that cannot possibly have any one voice be heard. That said, I do think it's important to vote. And again, if we want to talk about the responsibility, I think the responsibility is a personal responsibility to express yourself and to do so in a way that is knowledgeable. Now, that is the trick. A lot of people think that democracy means everybody gets a voice. That's never been a thing. At least as far as I know. Like the ancient Greeks, we go, oh yeah, they gave everyone the vote. Kinda, unless you were a slave, or a pile of different things that you could be that would mean you didn't deserve a vote. But realistically, in Canada, everyone has a vote. In theory, sometimes it's difficult for people to vote. Sometimes people, the rules and regulations get in the way of people voting. America's really notorious for the Conservative Party down there. The Republicans are super good at trying to control who gets the vote and how they get the vote. And I think the Democrats are probably just as bad historically. If you look at things like gerrymandering, I think that all of the parties have sort of just taken a pragmatic approach to like, yeah, it's undemocratic, but we want to win. And certainly here in the grand, glorious country of Canada, we would not be, accepted from that. Trudeau, when he was elected, one of the things he pushed hard on was electoral reform. And like everything else, we didn't do that because it turns out electoral reform is really important when you're not the guy in power. When you're the guy in power, no. We'll do that later. We'll do that when I'm not going to be in power again. So nothing ever changes. It's kind of like in the States they're talking about taxing the rich more. That will never happen. And it's because the rich people are the ones who pay the grift to all of the politicians. Those billion-dollar elections don't come for free. You get political PACs footing huge amounts of money to support the candidates that they want, and that's the shit. That's the shit that happens. So the whole thing is kind of all the way cringe. So yeah, I do believe that our votes don't count, but I do believe that we should do it anyway, and should is not a scoldy statement. I think that we should vote. I should vote. I've chosen not to vote in the past in certain elections. I've talked about that before. I don't know that I agree today with the position I had then. Hi, Dad, Clint made me hungover, or me make me hungover. I think maybe you and Clint were both to blame. For the millions watching across the world, Clint is one of the owners of one of Calgary's fine live music venues, Vern's. And sometimes you wind up drinking some liquor beers when you're down there. And it sounds like YYC Live Music, who happens to be my eldest kiddo, may have fallen victim to his tactics. It happens to all of us. One time I had a liquor drink. Just the once, though. It's right here. Haven't got into it yet. Yeah. So, and then the other thing I wanted to talk about, since we're talking about voting, is the idea of, like, when I say voting your interests, there's a lot of people who are single issue voters, and that is weird to me. These are the people who, for example, and the easy one to pick on is guns. And I'm pro-gun. I actually want to own guns. I want to do so after I have teenage children with emotional distress living in my house. But I have nothing against guns. I think guns should be controlled. I think they should be regulated. And I think that not everybody on Earth should have one. My neighbor, who is now dead, should probably not have a gun. At this point, he can't have a gun. Oh yeah, Kiddo, the creepy neighbor, apparently overdosed and died. Just found out last night. But yeah, guns are fine to me. But people will use that single issue and go, guns are important. If we'd let the government take our guns, they're taking our guns, then then anarchy and government tyranny and all this kind of stuff. And people who are I know people who are extremely left-leaning, who always vote conservative because they're terrified that Justin Trudeau or whomever it is on the left is coming for their guns. So like a single issue voter, when I was helping my buddy Kevin with his campaign, he ran for a party called the Alberta Party before they became just a blasé centrist party. Their original concept was, I guess they were always sort of centrist, but they were better than they are now, shall I say. And when we were going door knocking, you'd hit a conservative, like especially like some dude who's worked for, let's say, 15 years in a trades gig. He's very conservative. His parents were conservative. And we'd go to the door and they'd be like, "Where do you stand on abortion?" And Kevin would be like, "Well, that's actually not a provincial issue. That's federal law. Like, this isn't a debate. So, like, I don't need to have a stand on abortion. My personal stance on abortion is I'm for access to abortion, and I think that people should have access. I think blah, 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 blah." And they'd be like, "Oh, you're one of those." That is a single issue voter, because to that person, abortion is the only thing that matters. And if you say I am anti-abortion, then now I can hear anything else you might say. But if you say I'm okay with abortions, then immediately you're a degenerate and you can't get a vote for. How did the boy handle the Linka drinks last week? Did he learn to take it easy? How did he handle it? I think he handled it fine. He just had some beers, I believe, and he was okay. He's been a bit of a handful this week, and I will not lie, I was a little bit of a grump. The two boys were fighting and woke me up from a much needed nap when I was dealing with a migraine, and I did not react as a good Christian parent would, but no one was hurt, so that's good. But it was not my finest hour. Yeah, he handled the liquor drinks much better than the previous time. So, it's the little things. Can I be a dork for a second? No, I'm not going to do that. Let's talk about Ralph Klein. I'm going to update my title because I have a title. And I'm going to go King Ralphus the Klein. King Ralphus the Klein. I have seen lately a lot of people posting all kinds of stuff about, Alberta was so much better when Ralph Klein was the leader. Why can't we go back to that? And I can answer that question. I can also provide some pretty clear arguments that say that we were not better when Ralph Klein was the God King of the world. Yeah, scare my kids when their asses too. And that's totally, it was a moment. But I don't like doing that because I like to think that I can have a conversation and a calm conversation to get through things. I was a bouncer. I know how to talk. But that's the thing. Yeah, he was a woman abuser, Klein. We're talking about Klein now. He was a woman abuser. He was he loved his liquor almost as much as he loved his cigarettes. When he was mayor of Calgary, so I guess he started as a journalist and then he became mayor. And when he was mayor, he loved to drink at a bar called the St. Louis, which is a downtown bar. And kind of a seedy one. It's no longer around, but it was definitely like it was the bar that was right across from City Hall. It was full of the sort of sketchier folk. So that there was a great deal of just enjoyment of having a God King politics man who was of the people. And, you know, I don't disagree. I think that there was some cool there. But he was, yeah, he gave everyone $400 and now he's good. Or now he's a god. He had a lot of really bad perspectives on things. As a mayor, he was fine, but like, you know, just typical mayor. You know, when Edmonton beat Calgary, he'd wear the Edmonton jersey with, you know, shame, and you know, that was the thing. It was a fun deal between the peoples. And then he decided he wanted to run provincially. And when he ran provincially, his first election, he became the Minister of the Environment for the Conservative Party. And suddenly he was wearing suits, and they were sure that he didn't drink the liquor anymore. And he was a paragon of virtue. And then stories would come out of him like getting pissed drunk and going into a homeless shelter and berating people, things like that. I think that happened when he was premier. But he became premier, and which is the leader of the province, for those that are uninitiated in Canadian politics. Became the premier, and I can't even give him credit for doing anything good. He did a lot of very, very bad. The state of our healthcare system right now in this whole pandemic directly ties to Ralph Klein. Ralph Klein cut the ever-loving fuck out of every single public spend. And he did so arguing the necessity for we had to have a balanced budget. That was a big conservative talking point at the time. And we have to have a balanced budget. If we don't have a balanced budget, the commies win, or whatever the fuck he was on about. And, you know, cool, except that he didn't balance the budget. He just cut a lot of social programs. Think about it this way. If you have to balance your budget at home and you make sure all your bills are paid, but there's no money for food, so you just execute 3 of your children, that's not balancing a budget at all. And that was the approach he took. What saved him, what actually ended up giving him a boost in, so that we actually had a budget surplus, wasn't the great tax cuts that he made. It was unexpectedly high oil prices, because Alberta is a province whose economy is driven by oil and gas. And prior to this time, I remember having conversations where people were talking about $50 a barrel oil as this like impossible dream. And then around the time that this was happening, $50 an oil, or $50 a barrel oil was like, you know, if we can get oil to $50 a barrel, then we can start exploring these oil sands that we were all talking about. But it's just not worth it if it's less than $50 an oil, dollars a barrel in oil. And then oil hit $50 a barrel. That was quite unexpected at the time, and it meant huge revenues for the government through royalties. So it wasn't that he did good. It wasn't that his incredibly cagey economic planning resulted in benefits. It was that there was an unexpected massive boom in oil use, and the availability of Canadian oil as a result, the oil sands, made a huge impact in our economy. And so he bribed everybody with Ralph bucks, we all called them. And it was a check that every single person got for $400 or $500. I never got one because, well, there's a whole story there. But suffice to say, everybody but me got a check from Ralph Klein. And we are, as a result, supposed to believe that he was a wonderful and glorious leader who did good. And in fact, his second year running, I remember his campaign slogan was "Ralph told the truth." And when he was running for premier the second time. The first time he ran for premier, he made a total of 23 promises, all of which were, "I will not cut this, I will not cut this," and the last one was, "I will balance the budget." And the only thing he told the truth about was accidentally getting lucky enough to balance the budget, so Ralph told the truth. And it was like, oh my God, you disingenuous fuckboy. So when people post all of this stuff and go like, "Yeah, things were so much better with Ralph Klein," first and foremost, Jason Kenney was Ralph Klein's number one right-hand dude. Not necessarily number one, but like he is a protege of Ralph Klein. His policies are Ralph Klein policies through and through. Ralph Klein called it the Alberta Advantage, and he was all about making sure that we're attracting businesses. Particularly oil and gas businesses, like get their headquarters in Calgary. That's huge for our economy, and it's true. That's a benefit, but it's also a very outmoded way of thinking. Right? We're not in that world now. The idea of a company even having an office to me is kind of ridiculous post COVID. We've realized how little office space we actually need and how much work we can do remotely. Why in the fuck are we paying these kind of real estate prices? But anyways, lots of support for things like corporate bailouts, which are definitely not welfare. Lots of support for lowering business taxes. Lots of support for passing all of those problems on to the working class. And cut the shit out of any public infrastructure that you can. So your public spending is ugly and awful, and we never want to do that. So, cutting public health. He blew up a fucking hospital that we needed. We actually have only recently, like in the last, decade, built the Shelton Shamir Clinic. Ironically enough, Shelton Shamir being the Liberal Party leader at the time who was going against Ralph Klein. On a very strong liberal ticket of, hey, we should probably have healthcare. He blew up the General Hospital. He massively slashed everything. And then when it's all tactics, right? These kinds of conservatives will cut the shit out of all the programs and then go, it's weird that they're not able to run properly. We should privatize, right? Am I right? Privatize? If the government can't run it, business can run it, and it's a fucking tactic. So Jason Kenney is Ralph Klein, and the only difference in how we're feeling about him is we're not getting bribery checks, and we're not having an unexpected boost in the oil or the price of oil to make us all wealthy. Because let's face facts, Alberta's hurting right now, and it's hurting largely because we're a one horse industry, or one horse town of industry. I don't fucking know what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean? We got one industry. We like to pretend we have a bunch of industries. Almost all of them are related to the fact that we have this one strong industry, and it ain't strong right now. And so we aren't doing good. We also don't respect a lot of the other industries we have, like the arts. I did a stream once where we talked about like the actual revenue of live music in Alberta, and I think I looked at some numbers from BC, and it's billions of dollars a year come in as a result of an effective live music scene, but we do everything we can to cut it out because those people are scummy hoodlums. Speaking of which, October 16th, Bodies of Everest show. And if you're into it, I think it's October 8th. We also have Beer Course putting on a show with Finney from the Mahones is coming to town to do some solo stuff. It'll be super rad at the border crossing. But the show that I'm playing on the 16th is a fundraiser for the fantastic folks at the Bear Clan Patrol. I don't have all the details. It hasn't been officially released. I probably shouldn't mention it. But I'm a spoiler. I'm a spoiler. It's what I do. If I was milk, I'd be chunky. I am chunky. But I'm not milk. So there you go. That'll be after I get tired of calling myself Big Ugly Jim. It'll be Chunky Jim. Chunky Milk Jim. All right. So yeah, is there more to talk about with Ralph Klein? We can look at some of his greatest hits, like showing up at a homeless shelter and literally throwing money drunkenly at two women who were there and being like, "You fucking lazy whores, get a goddamn job." That's a good look for a provincial leader. He's no Rob Ford, or worse yet, Doug Ford. Hey, I'm running for mayor of Toronto, and here's me with a crack pipe. But yeah, Google revenue from oil and gas Alberta. We can, yeah, let's take a look. Let me just pop over to the Googs. And, I should switch over so you can see what I'm doing. Okay. Oil and gas revenue, Alberta. Let's just see what the story is. Historical royalty revenue. I don't know if this will be useful or not. Oh, look, it's a... Yeah, that's not what I'm looking for. As oil money... this is probably... We're probably looking for... If I jump to images, we'll get some graphs. Alberta resource revenue makeup. So this starts in when? 1970 to 1971. All right. Is that full screen? It is, isn't it? No, it's not. Fuck off, Google Lens. That's not what I wanted. I want a goddamn full screen, goddammit. And that's not full screen either. Jesus, H. You'd think I'd learn how to, use Google. What with my being a Googler. We'll just go with this little shitty side garbage image. Can I move it over? I can't. That was. I knew that wasn't going to be the case. All right. So in 1970 to 1971, we had This is an interesting. There's actually, and this is totally unrelated and unimportant, but there's a cool thing that there was. Someone did a study about oil and gas revenue, and more importantly, the effectiveness of Alberta exploration of oil and gas, and they compared the success rate of oil and gas exploration to a child with a dart and a map. And up until 1975, a child throwing a dart at the map was more accurate than our exploration industry. We just didn't know how to find oil at the time. Now we're obviously much better at it. But so yeah, here we have in the early 70s, it was not a whole bunch. And then it spikes up a little bit in the mid 70s. Pretty strong all the way through up to the 80s. We had a general dip. I guess it was a dip in most things, but not so much in specific royalty features, whatever that means, and ARTC, whatever that means. I don't fucking know what that means. But our big one is the red, the conventional oil royalties. So our oil royalties came up, had a little dip in the early 80s. That was a bad time for Alberta. Then we had a little bit of a bump, and then we had a serious dip at the end of the 80s. Things were actually really, really kind of shitty in the oil industry, and that caused a lot of people a lot of misery. And we stayed along pretty flat, and then all of a sudden, spike. Was that Ralph Klein times? Let's quickly just jump over and go Klein, Ralph Klein timeline. See, there's got to be something. So entry into provincial province, premier, 1992. Yeah. So looking at our chart here, 1992, things were fairly stable, fairly not really doing great. And then when was Ralph's? It was right before the Ralph Bucks. So 93 election, Alberta austerity program. The prosperity bonus was 2003. So if we jump back here, 2003 would be right in this kind of an area when we'd had this huge spike, this massive influx of unexpected revenue that we could use to do things like have a surplus, pay off some debt, and bribe all of the voters. And then we had a bit of a slowdown, and then things went up, and then things went down, and then things went up, and then things went really down. And this is where we've been living for the last little while, because oil and gas ain't good. Notice the oil sands is we had almost no oil sands here. This would be like pre $50 a barrel oil, like I was saying. That was a huge part of making the cost of extraction worthwhile. And when we had this spike, this allowed us to develop better tar sand technology and it's always been sort of the leader, and it follows the same rough shape, but it's much higher, and it's been improving since. Anyways, that's a whole lot of talk about oil prices that I am by no means expert on. Let's see. Percentage compared to other industries. Oil and gas is 10% and agriculture is 22% of our GDP. Oh, okay. I understand what you mean. So what we're saying is if we pop back here, we go oil and gas revenue. Let's say energy revenue versus as percentage Alberta. Let's just see. Alberta. That's not what I'm looking for. I need to probably go to all and just see revenue Alberta. Do we have cool graphs and charts? Revenue sources. Okay, so we don't have percentages, unfortunately. Is there another chart here with percentages? Well, that's very telling. Personal income tax is estimated for 2021 forecast to be 12, I guess that's $12 billion, almost, $12.3 billion. And corporate income tax, where the money is made, is a sixth of that, or a fifth of that. That's neat. Sugar, do you have a link that I could look at? Because I'm clearly just sort of poking around like a poorly guided wiener. So if you have a link that you're looking at, we can definitely talk further about that breakdown. But yeah, agriculture is a much bigger business in Alberta. But oil and gas is a powerful business. Agriculture, in my mind, we definitely give way too much thought to oil and gas. Agriculture is the bigger industry leader, but it is also very wide spread out, and so you don't have consolidation of voices. In Calgary, you have a lot of rich oil mans, largely people who've never actually seen oil up close because they pay some teenager to put it in their car for them, and that's as far as they need to care. But yeah, that's definitely a thing. Oil is like the primary concern in this province because it has historically been our bread and butter since the 1970s, since that point where we learned how to do proper oil exploration, and we saw those numbers as oil became like a much bigger source of revenue. Statistica.com. All right, let me just copy and paste. And thank you, Sugar. I appreciate that. I'll just paste that in here, and then I will pop back and switch over so other people can see what I'm doing. And yeah, I'm allowing your cookies. Fuck right off with that. Okay, so distribution of gross domestic product of Alberta, Canada so this is 2019. So we've had some stuff happen since then. Mining, quarrying, and oil and gas extraction, 16.12%. Real estate and rental and leasing, 11.74%. That surprises me that it's that high. Construction, 8.81%. Manufacturing, I'm surprised is as high as it is too, at 8%. GDP of Alberta by industry, 2019. I don't want an account on statistic. Okay, so where am I? I'm not sure if I'm picking up what I should be picking up out of here. Where is the agricultural? Because I don't see agricultural listed, and I know that agricultural is a substantial part of our economy. Can I expand it? Yeah, according to this, it's 1.77% of our revenues. Anything written by Alberta government pretty much ignores industries that do better than oil and gas. So I'm not sure 100% if I am getting what this statistic stuff tells me is that oil and gas, very important. Real estate and rental, very important. Construction, and then we have our sliding scale of what's important in terms of revenue. But Art's 0.61%. Again, this is 2019. I guarantee in 2021, Art's is going to be a lot less. But I think our overall we're in a world of hurt right now, and I don't think we're doing anything really well financially. It's a bad and scary time for Alberta. So anyways, King Ralph, the classic got lucky story. He was a local journalist who became a mayor. Somebody was like, we can polish up that turd and make him a premier, and they did, and now we're here. So yay, Ralph. All right, I'm gonna take a break. Before I go on my break, I'm gonna play a song. This is very rough, but this is the newest Bodies of Ever song. It just, at this point, it just has like a rough track of drums and guitars. It's got a rough track of bass, and it's got some keyboards, but I really like it, and I'm gonna play it, and then I'm gonna go step outside and have a quick break. Should I do that, or should I just? How long is this song? Nah, I want to hear it. Fuck it. I like it. It's called Sons of Sedition. Reno wrote it the day after, January 7th. So he wrote it immediately after there was that insurrection thing that happened. And that makes it kind of funsies. So here we go. See?
But I said, something's wrong here. Something's really wrong. Can't have happened. And we fight. We fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. As this enormous crowd shows, we have truth and justice on our side.
I'll just go for smoke now.
So we're going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. I love Pennsylvania Avenue. And we're going to the Capitol. But we're going to try and give our Republicans, going to try and give them the kind of pride and boldness that they need to take back our country. So let's walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. I want to thank you all. God bless you, and God bless America.
Hey, sorry. I'm back.
But I said, something's
shit,
wrong
it's
here.
repeating.
Something's really wrong. Can't have...
That's not what I wanted to have happen. Get rid of the thing on my face. And fade back. I see there was chat stuff. Alberta has one of the most productive agricultural economies with a total farm area of 50.3 million acres or 20.3 million hectares. 22% of Canada's primary agricultural production. The province posted the highest cattle receipts as well as the second highest total crop receipts in this country. It's PDF. Oh, yeah. That's me being dumb, not knowing what I'm clicking on. No worries. All right. I haven't mentioned the humiliation ticker yet. I should probably do so. And again, the whole purpose of the humiliation process is me fighting back against Jeff Bezos, because Jeff Bezos is a garbage person. What I do, I had this whole thing where I had a moment where I was like, one day I might actually like have enough followers that people start being able to subscribe and they'll want to support me because they're nice people, and don't support me because I don't need money. I have a good day job, then that's important for, you know, all that kind of stuff. But realistically, people are going to want to support me. And instead of supporting me through subscribing, which would mean giving Jeff Bezos money, don't do that. Ever. Instead, I came up with the humiliation ticker, which looks a little something like this. So essentially what we do is I will humiliate myself on every one of these Saturday streams. The basis of this is just to give people other ways of doing things. You can either give me money by email transferring me directly, or for those that don't know me, I actually created a separate email called bigjimyammers@gmail.com. I'm really, one of these days I'll actually put that right here, but I haven't done that yet. So, or you can use streamlabs.com/biguglygym, and that will be a thing. Anyways, if I get no tips, I'm still going to humiliate myself. I'm going to do the free thing, which is the good karaoke. Today's good karaoke, I hope, is going to be good. I literally, like, an hour ago was like, oh shit, I haven't figured out what I want to do for karaoke yet. So I decided on The Nature Boy by Nat King Cole, which is a song I used to sing to my children. But I don't know if it's in my range. I don't know. Blah, blah, blah. It might be fucking terrible. It's a very rangy song, so it might just be awful. At the $10 range, which I usually just give away for free because I enjoy humiliating myself no matter what, is Bad Karaoke. And Bad Karaoke today is... What did I pick? Shit. I'm glad I wrote it down. Bad Karaoke for today will be... Where is my thing? Oh! 500 Miles by the Proclaimers, which I guarantee you will be awful. At $20 is Karaoke, where chat gets to pick a song and I will have to sing it if it's a karaokeable song. At $35 is Trumpetoke, where I will play my trumpet badly to whatever song chat picks. And at $50 is Hell to Pay, where chat basically just can tell me what to do and I have to do it to, you know, within rules of terms of service, of course. So anyways, that's the plan for that. But that will all come later. I see I have a chat message. They are all good for different reasons. Sorry, the karaoke. They are definitely the bad karaoke can sometimes be the best because it can be so bad. And sometimes I've surprised myself and like actually nailed a song. Like I did Criminal Mind a little while ago by Gowan. And I did not expect to be able to sing that song. It's way out of my range. But it turns out an octave down, it works. And it also turns out nobody knows that it's an octave down because no one remembers that song because I'm fucking old. So that worked out for me really well. Yay me. Way to fail with grace and style. All right. Let's talk about our next topic that I was going to talk about. What did I want to do? Do you guys want to talk about the baloney detection kit? I think it's kind of relevant right now. I'm gonna do that. Let's update my title because I have a title. The baloney detection kit. And that is too long. I can just tell automatically, so we're going to call it just baloney detection kit. What do I mean by baloney detection kit? Well, it actually comes from the glorious leader of our movement, Mr. Carl Sagan, from a book of his that he wrote many years ago called Demon Haunted World. And it's a phenomenally good book. And I strongly recommend everybody check it out. We can see it all. You can see it all. Yeah, you can see it all here. But if I go to my browser screen, then that's why I said it was because my little face shows up over here. And we'll be having the browser open when we do this. So anyways, and it's cool because it like perfectly lined up there. And I didn't know that. I just was like eyeballing it going, that looks too long. So yeah, he wrote this book and he talked about what he called a baloney detection kit. The ability for us to recognize when we're being told, as the leader of the free world would say, malarkey. So let's take a look at the baloney detection kit as defined by Mr. Carl Sagan. So I just Googled it earlier and brought it up just so I knew that I would be finding it. This is from a website called Brain Pickings. I know nothing about it, but we're scrolling down. That's Carl. There he is. Hello, Carl Sagan. Amazing human being. Also, apparently, unbeknownst to many, an early weed activist. But essentially, I'll explain. The kit is brought out as a matter of course whenever new ideas are offered for consideration. If the new idea survives examination by the tools in our kit, we grant it warm, although tentative, acceptance. If you're so inclined, if you don't want to buy baloney even when it's reassuring to do so, there are precautions that can be taken. There's a tried and true consumer tested method. There's probably a whole lot of context. But Sagan shares 9 of these tools. So first and foremost, wherever possible, there must be independent confirmation of the facts. So let's talk COVID, for example. The mainstream narrative is pretty clear that there is independent confirmation of the facts. We have a large number of people who have received vaccinations and have not died as a result. We have the fact that the current hospital load is unvaccinated people. These are essentially, they act as independent confirmation of the facts. Whenever you're presented with something, though, you should be able to find somebody else independent of the person making the claim who can support it in some way. From a scientific perspective, this is the same as essentially peer review, where you say, okay, we have a thing that we're saying is the truth, and are the findings something that we can reproduce, right? So independent of the original statement, can we reproduce this and show that it is true? Is there independent confirmation of the facts? It's an important thing. That doesn't happen with a lot of these alternative arguments that come along. In some cases, this isn't possible, right? So the lab leak is a good example where we don't have independent confirmation of the facts because we don't have the ability to hold China to the fire. That said, there is a great deal of reasoning to believe that this doesn't mean that it doesn't pass. Just essentially with this list, you should be questioning the things that you see and holding them up and saying, based on this list, how much credit do I want to give this? Encourage substantive debate on the evidence by knowledgeable proponents of all points of view. So, again, using the COVID denial thing, the first thing that happens is I have an alternative statement. Let's explore it and ignore the scientific consensus. They're all liars. They're all in on a conspiracy by big government or the globalists or whatever nickname for Jew you want to come up with. But immediately not respecting all points of view, dismissing major chunks of points of view simply because they don't qualify. So that's a lack of any substantive debate with an even perspective. Arguments from authority carry little weight. Authorities have made mistakes in the past. They will do so again in the future. Perhaps a better way to say it is that in science, there are no authorities. At most, there are experts. So, and again, COVID is a good example here. I'm going to use COVID as the example for all of this. But the authorities, in this case, both scientific authorities and government authorities, their stances should not bear a whole lot of weight. Realistically, and the Tuskegee experiment and things like that are good examples of this, where, yeah, they can say, oh yeah, we understand and we've done and we've learned and all this kind of stuff, but authority on its own isn't enough. That's what this is saying. It's not saying just because somebody's an authority you dismiss their perspective. You just say that the fact that they're an authority doesn't grant them a perfect track record. So you need to be able to say, yeah, it's great that authority says that vaccination is important. What does the data say with that? So when people are like, oh, you love the government, you're just a bootlicker. No, I'm not. I distrust the government. I don't distrust science on the topic of vaccinations because we have proven data from many years of vaccine research that goes into this. So that would make them experts, but not necessarily authorities in these terminologies. Spin more than one hypothesis. Spin more than one hypothesis. If there's something to be explained, think of all the different ways in which it could be explained. Then think of tests which might systematically disprove each of the alternatives. What survives the hypothesis that resists disproof in this Darwinian selection among multiple working hypotheses has a much better chance of being the right answer than if you had simply run with the first idea that caught your fancy. So this doesn't necessarily pertain so much in the COVID world, because we are building on a vast amount of previous knowledge. We have encountered viruses before. We have an entire sort of science called virology that uses what we've learned and leverages what we learned to make predictions, to all of that kind of stuff. So this is not we're not at the place now where we would say that COVID is a hypothesis. It was a virus. We knew very quickly that it was a virus. We knew very quickly that it was an extension of previous coronavirus things, and so this one doesn't necessarily relate. Where I would give an example of this would be going back in time to San Francisco during a point where cases of bubonic plague started to show up, and they started to show up in Chinatown. And the hypothesis that people immediately jumped to was that those filthy Chinese are making us all sick and we should expel them from the country or quarantine them or murder them outright, or whatever leap that people made. Probably not the right answer. In fact, what we found out was this was caused by rats that, again, the fleas on rats or whatever it is. But the Chinatown happened to be in a wharf area. So you have a lot of wharf rats, and wharf rats have exposure to a lot of stuff because they come from all over, on boats and things. So it was, that is an alternative hypothesis to the filthy Chinese that was actually accurate. And when you have enough information, you go, oh, well, the whole filthy Chinese hypothesis just doesn't hold as much water, and in fact is wrong, so we can discredit it, and you wind up with this whole issue of the virus being, or the disease, I don't know if bubonic plague is a virus or not, but being passed through wharf rats to humans in an environment where there are a lot of wharf rats. Not about a particular race. If it had been called Honky Town, they would have had the same problem. Number 5, try not to get overly attached to a hypothesis just because it's yours. It's only a way station in the pursuit of knowledge. Ask yourself why you like the idea. Compare it fairly with the alternatives. See if you can find reasons for rejecting it. If you don't, others will. Again, this kind of is the idea of pride goeth before the fall. One of my favorite stories in the realm of science comes from arguably one of the crappiest voices, Richard Dawkins. I'm not a Dawkins stan, so that's just a thing. Dawkins related a story, I'm pretty sure it was Dawkins, related a story of when he was early in his educational career. There was a teacher at his school who had basically made a career on this one theory. And one day a student was giving a presentation that essentially debunked his whole theory and provided an alternative that would have been a separate hypothesis. And in his presentation, he presented his hypothesis, he presented the other accepted hypothesis, went through data, went through his process, went through all of these things, and at the end of things, everyone in the room knew that his hypothesis was the one that held merit over the other one and was more likely the true thing. Now, that brings us to this moment, because the whole room is full of people going, shit, what's going to happen? And this doctor gets up and walks to the front of the stage. Now, if that doctor had been overly attached to their hypothesis, this could have been a very ugly moment. But instead, the doctor got up, shook his hand, and said, thank you so much, because his work had proved that the doctor's hypothesis was wrong, and that as a result, more knowledge was being implemented in the greater good, and that is an awesome thing. So that was a doctor who was not overly attached to their hypothesis, even though they had basically made a career out of it. And science is full of examples of this. It also relates to, when the pandemic folks started their whole, oh, it's a fake thing, blah, about this virus. They got overly attached to that idea, and now no matter what you say, that attachment prevents them from hearing you. Another example, and one that's more on me, is speaking of the lab leak. When I first heard the whole lab leak thing, I dismissed it as a conspiracy theory thing. And I shouldn't have, because there's reason to suspect that there's a potential there. And as time went by, I had to look at that and go, yep, that was me just dismissing something outright rather than having any accurate take on the subject. So that kind of sucks to admit, but I'd rather admit it and be like, okay, you know what? It's I'm not saying it's fact. I'm saying that there is an investigation to be had. Quantify, number 6, quantify. If whatever it is you're explaining has some measure, some numerical quantity attached to it, you'll be much better able to discriminate amongst competing hypotheses. What is vague and qualitative is open to many explanations. Of course, there are truths to be sought in the main qualitative issues we are obliged to confront, but finding them is more challenging. So all this means is numbers will always speak louder than anything else. Facts don't care about your feelings, however you want to phrase this. If you can show something with actual data, then it will be stronger than something that is based on, well, that's kind of how I feel about things. I saw a meme this week. Somebody was like, ugh, eggs. Once upon a time, they told us eggs were good, and then they told us eggs were bad and never touch eggs. And then they told us the egg whites were good, but the yellows were bad. And now they tell us that eggs are good, but only in moderation. Like, why can't science ever be right? Obviously, therefore, vaccines are a lie, which is a obviously ridiculously flawed thought. But the issue here is that as we got more data, and as we saw, initially they were looking at the data, as I understand things, from a perspective of, okay, are eggs good? And we know that eggs contain cholesterol, and we see that there's a cholesterol problem. Therefore, eggs are probably bad, and we should, ease back on our egg use. And they probably overreacted and said, never eat an egg. And then more study was done, and more information came out that said, you know what? You can eat parts of the egg that are less cholesterol concerning than other parts or whatever. And then there was, okay, well, you know what? The total amount of cholesterol that we're getting from eggs is less significant than we thought. Again, I don't know the particulars, but each step along the way, there's a challenge to the accepted norm with qualitative or quantitative information that says this actually proves that our norm is incorrect. That's how science corrects itself. That's how it learns from past assumptions. So the assumption that eggs were good was a valid one until such time as we saw qualitative data that said, wait, maybe they're not. And then every step along the way, every little thing that we've done in exploring this has taught us that we have to refine our assumption a little bit. It's not the same as saying, therefore science doesn't understand things. It's saying, therefore science continues to improve. 7, if there's a chain of argument, every link in that chain must work, including the premise, not just most of them. And this is where most conspiracy theories fail miserably. When you tie all of these different things together to prove an overall point, like the fact that there's a giant satanic cabal that is happy to rape children and drink their blood and eat that, whatever, the adrenochrome, drink the adrenochrome, whatever it is. There's a series of different things that go to create this total argument, and many of those things don't work, and therefore the whole argument fails. It doesn't mean that you can have a statement that is true supported by a chain of argument that has weak links, but it's if the chain is the proof, then the chain better be goddamn solid. Number 8, Occam's razor. This convenient rule of thumb urges us, when faced with two hypotheses that explain the data equally well, to choose the simpler. Conspiracies are a good example. If we look at 9/11 and we say, okay, there is one argument that says there was this huge conspiracy among all these people to take down all these buildings and blow them up, and it was an act of internal terrorism performed by the government on the people, versus there was some terrorists that had previously been terrorists and they continued to be terrorists and they did a terrorism and it was a surprisingly effective terrorism. Those are essentially both valid hypotheses, and you can say, okay, well, which one makes which one is easiest? Is it easier to believe that a small handful of people did a very bad thing, that reasonably you could say they took advantage of flaws in our then almost negligible security on flights, versus an entire government conspiracy that required literally hundreds of people to be involved in, and no one said a thing? Yeah, no. No. Sorry, no. No. And then number 9. Always ask whether the hypothesis can be, at least in principle, falsified. Propositions that are untestable, unfalsifiable, are not worth much. Consider the grand idea that our universe and everything in it is just an elementary particle, an electron, say, in a much bigger cosmos. But if we can, if it's Carl Sagan, I have to say cosmos. But if we can never acquire information from outside our universe, is not the idea incapable of disproof? You must be able to check assertions out. Inveterate skeptics must be given the chance to follow your reasoning, to duplicate your experiments, and see if they get the same result. Again, this talks about peer review. It also talks about specific manipulation. So, what was an example of that recently? I think there was ivermectin studies that were being cited by people. I think it was ivermectin. I could be wrong about that, but there were studies that were being cited by people in, pardon me, the whole COVID argument. And the authors of those studies were like, actually, our data was bad, and it was cherry picked, and it was whatever, and therefore it doesn't hold up to scrutiny. This also comes down to not just peer review of recreating a experiment, but doing things like looking at the data. I am not qualified to look at a lot of the data that we're talking about here, but data can be very misleading, and how data is cultivated can be very misleading. And as a result, you can wind up with data that proves what you say it proves only if you sort of glance at it the right way. And that's a very, very tricky thing, right? So if we consider this as a toolkit and we say, okay, there are 9 things that we can do here and present, again, it's not going to tell you what is true and what is false, but it's going to give you a sense of how much credibility can I actively give to this thing in order to make my own mind up about it. People talk about do your own research, but researching without essentially having an effective way of assessing that research is problematic, right? If do your own research means go on the internet and type in stuff and let QAnon tell you what to think as a viable alternative hypothesis, then you need to have skills and tools to say, okay, but how much can I put my faith in this? And in the case of things like QAnon, the answer is probably pretty fucking limited. So, yeah, that's the baloney detection kit. I thought that'd be a fun little exercise to go through. I hope you enjoyed it. I did, but I'm a nerd. What do I want to talk about now? You still with me, chat? My massive international spanning chat. I see. There's a new name. There's Shandwala. I think is one of my viewers. I'm not sure if that's pronounced correctly or whatever. If you are a human and not a robot, welcome. I hope you have fun, and I hope that if you like, click on the old follow button. And if you don't like, hey, sorry about that. Either way, it's good to have people here, and of course, yeah, Sugar's here. You're here, and I appreciate that. Piss out of you, darling. Just listening, and you're by all means. I'm going to talk about Alberta separation, which is a stupid thing to talk about because it's a stupid topic. But a friend of mine shared a meme the other day, or no, I don't even think it was sharing a meme. I think they just wrote a Facebook status that was like, "Oh my God, we gotta separate from Canada, transfer payments, rah!" And I audibly facepalmed. It was one of those like. So there is a movement in Alberta to be separate. That is to me one of the funniest fucking things there ever was. And I'm gonna vent about it for a little bit. This movement is not new. When I was teaching college way back early in my career, I think I was like 24. So that's like half my life ago. Holy shit, I'm fucking old. When I was teaching college, I worked with a guy who was very big in the Alberta independence movement. And he assumed because I was cool and thoughtful that obviously I was therefore just like him and we could have cool conversations about how, stupid liberals are and things. Which, neat. Being a fucking hardcore socialist. Those were great conversations. I enjoyed a lot. But where am I putting my coffee? Put it down here. So Alberta separation, his whole thing was he didn't want to separate. Separation wasn't the end goal that he was really hoping for, but it was a really good threat because in Canada you have Quebec, and Quebec has a party called the Bloc Québécois, which is a separationist party, and which is, because of the way that the ridings work out and the various things about Canada, they wield a remarkable amount of power. In fact, there was one election where they were almost the official opposition to the government, which for one party to have, like for one province to have that kind of sway, it's just stupid. But anyways, the Bloc Québécois always talk about separation, to the point where we actually had a national referendum about separation years and years ago. Should we allow Quebec to leave the country? Now, the whole argument is stupid. There was a great bit that they did on This Hour Has 22 Minutes where they had a map of Quebec at the time. And not that the map has changed, but this happened back then during the whole Meech Lake time. And they're like, the thing that Quebec needs to understand is that there's a lot of land there that is indigenous land. It's not just Quebec. You can't just be like, oh yeah, Quebec. The indigenous people who live there would have determination on what happens with their lands, and they have agreements in place with the Canadian government, and they could very well choose to not support the idea of separating. And so he said, like, so if, I think it was Rick Mercer, he was like, okay, so if we take like this chunk of the map and we remove this because this belongs to the Iroquois, for I don't know what groups are out there, but he takes away all these chunks of the map and all that's left is one of these. It was adorable. Anyways, neither here nor there. Anyways, Quebec regularly uses the threat of separation as a thing. So this Alberta separation movement, my colleague was like, that's the thing, is it's an effective political tactic. We should be willing to use that. And I was like, but it's a dickhead tactic, and you hate that the French do it. So why in the fuck are you emulating? He's like, well, if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for us. And I was like, well, is that really how the world should be? I don't think it is. Anyways, Alberta separation comes and goes in terms of conversations. And right now there is a conversation that's happening around transfer payments. So Alberta historically has been a have province and currently is not so heavy because oil and gas prices are in the toilet, and but we're doing better than other places, so we do send money in transfer payments to other parts of the country, which to me makes sense. I've talked about this many times. Having wealth that is distributed kind of lines up with my crazy socialist fantasy of the world. So that's a good thing. I support the idea. But that said, some people really hate it and get really frustrated about it. There's a sense of, we're paying money for the lazy parts of Canada, quote unquote, to just continue to be all lazy and stupid, and we don't get anything for it, and we don't have a voice. Those are separate issues, and they're valid but also stupid. So I don't want to talk about the specifics of what would happen if we separated. For one thing, there's the question of militarily, how do we do that? There's a million problems. Another thing is we have to have access to tidewater according to international agreements. So if we didn't, if it was just Alberta that left and we didn't have access to tidewater, we'd actually have a legal right to essentially force Canada to give us a corridor to tidewater. It's a thing, but to me the bigger issue is there's the Indigenous thing where Indigenous people have agreements with Canada. I think it's fair to say Canada has not nailed doing those agreements properly, but I think that it's also fair to say that having those agreements become null and void probably isn't terribly attractive to Indigenous people. And I think that the idea of negotiating new treaties with what is essentially a very conservative movement probably would not get a lot of support from Indigenous people. I could be wrong. I certainly don't want to speak on behalf of people who I am not, but I get that vibe that there would be hey, we're not cool with this. And realistically, Alberta cannot stand on its own. Alberta would need other provinces to, establish a solid, reasonably stable country. And I don't think we could do that. Again, we're tied to oil and gas so heavily. Sugar points out that that's not our only industry and that we have a very effective agricultural sector. But that doesn't mean that we would be in good shape if we separated. It'd be a whole thing. The comment I made on the post I thought was pretty clever, and it was, like I rent this house, and it costs me a lot of money, and I don't like that it costs me a lot of money, and I don't always feel like my landlord is 100% listening to my needs, so I guess I just own the house now. That's not how things work, and that's not how things should work. So that's I don't know. It's a bit of a weak argument, but I find the whole topic really stupid. It's the I want it my way, and if I don't get it my way, I will take my ball and I will take my leave of you, sirs. And cool, people are gonna do that, but it's kind of stupid. So it's cutting off your nose to spite your face, and I'm not a big fan of that. Anyways, leaving the country is stupid. All right, let's talk COVID. COVID chat. I'm absolutely enjoying the fuck out of the maulding that is happening in the world about mandates right now. Now in Alberta, we have a very lackluster premier named Jason Kenney, who essentially is. Calling him garbage is perhaps not fair, but highly ineffectual, highly uninteresting, and really not a very awesome leader. So he has been very weak on enforcing mandates, and that has been specifically to appeal to, because Alberta is a very conservative place. We have a lot of dumb conservatives. And I don't mean, I'm not saying conservatives are dumb. It is a different perspective than I hold, but it doesn't mean that they're stupid. What's stupid is the people who are like, well, let me tell you about the way the things, the goddamn government, freedom, right? The chuds, for want of a better term. There's a lot of them. And they are constantly out having their little anti-mask gatherings and licking each other or whatever the fuck they do. I don't know. I don't go to these things. But Kenny has to tread a thin line, because if he doesn't support these morons, then he doesn't get their support at the polls. And his numbers are his what's the word for that? People don't like him. He's not a very likable bloke. And so he needs to curry their favor, and has been really weak on mandates and vaccines and all of that stuff. Most recently, they've taken their firmest stance, which is basically saying, we're pretty sure it's a really good idea to force people to do stuff. So what they did, and I talked about this last week, was originally they brought in new rules, because our case numbers are fucking crazy right now. They brought in new rules that said bars had to close by 10. That was because clearly after 10 in a bar, people started licking each other. And that was dumb, but it was a thing that they've changed their route today just so they could disrupt a walk for Indigenous children. Oh, for fuck's sake. I'm assuming we're talking about the chuds here. Fucking assholes. Jesus Christ. That... I would love to tell you I'm surprised that the assholes are behaving like that, but I'm not. Because remember, they're all for patriotism, but they're not for respecting other people. That's a thing. So fuck those people hard in their ear. Anyways, the current mandate is that they added a new wrinkle to things, and they said, if a bar is going to follow a program that says you have to have a vaccination and proof of double vaccination or legitimate medical exemption, and if the bar does that, then it can be open using just normal kinds of precautions. So the bar is responsible for making sure that everybody in the bar is double vaxxed or has a legitimate medical exemption. And I believe that with the legitimate medical exemption, you also have to have a within 72 hours a negative COVID test that you can prove. So that's, to me, that's a sensible approach. It's a mandate, but not really a mandate, because they were like, but if they don't want it, they don't have to, but then they have to close at 10. So it's the strongest wording they've done so far, which I think says a lot about how not strong their wording ever is. Alberta, that's what they said. Calgary was like, oh yeah, well, we're not gonna let it go that far. If you want to go to a bar or a restaurant or whatever, they have to participate in this program. At least that's my understanding, is they've said this. And so yeah, like essentially that becomes a mandate for the city, that if you want to go to a place like a bar or a restaurant, you either need proof of vaccination or legitimate medical refutation and some kind of negative COVID test and it has to be a private negative COVID test within the last 72 hours. Why is it private? Because there's no reason why the public should be paying for COVID tests every time you want to go to a bar. That just makes sense. So naturally, the chuds are molding, and they apparently they changed their route today so they could disrupt a walk for the Indigenous children. When we say the Indigenous children, I'm assuming what we're talking about is a awareness walk for the Indigenous children whose bodies are being found in mass graves in the sites of former residential schools. That was a genocide, and it's, we're literally just scratching the surface. Our current number is somewhere in the 6,000 area. I'm sorry, I don't know it off the top of my head. Of bodies they've found in unmarked graves at residential schools. That's a large, uncool number. How did we know to look there? Because the Indigenous people who live in the surrounding communities have been telling us all along that this was happening, to the point where in many residential schools, as I understand things, the teachers and the staff would make the Indigenous kids dig the fucking graves. So they actually knew where the graves were. And they were like, for literally decades, have been saying, please, oh please, can we do something about this? Can we pay attention to the fact that there's all of these dead children who we'd like to, properly bury or whatever the particular group wants to do about it. But at the very least, to be honest and admit that these weren't children who ran away, which was generally the story that people were told, but in fact they died, whether it was through disease that went improperly treated, or neglect, or abuse, or just sometimes people die, right? Certainly some of them would have died of just, maybe you had a bad heart or whatever. But can we just actually acknowledge that happened? And so Canada, I think it was a private company, was hired by one of the reserves to do ground penetrating radar, and found the original 215, I believe was the number. All of the numbers are now bleeding in my head, but I think it was the original 215 bodies were found, which prompted people like Lauren Southern to go, oh, it's not really true. That's only partly true. And some of those bodies, you don't know where they, fuck off. What it boils down to is Indigenous people said, hey, we've been disappearing, and this is where we were made to put the bodies. Put the cameras there, and we found bodies, and we were like, oh, that might be related. Calgary bishops wrote an open letter yesterday apologizing. Oh, that's good. Obviously too little too late. But I think if I understand the Indigenous perspective, and please don't ever take this as me knowing what the fuck I'm talking about, but if I understand the Indigenous perspective, it's not about we want to, punish and destroy the country for what it did to us, as much as they want people to admit the wrongdoing that has been done, so that actual healing can take place, and reconciliation can occur. That doesn't mean that, you know, there's an evensies that's coming. It's more that, you know, if you're coming to the table and the other party won't even admit that they did a wrong thing, then what's the point of even going to the table? They're planning on going to the Vatican to ask for some certain kind of apology from the Pope. I hope that works, but the Pope has proven to not be very receptive. I don't even remember what Pope we're on now, because they keep dying, because they only appoint old gross white men or the occasional Brazilian to that role. But yeah, the truth part of the truth and reconciliation. That's the thing. If let's just say I had a fight with my best friend Jojo Bob, and Jojo Bob did me wrong in some way, and he won't even admit that he did me wrong. How can we reconcile without having that first honest truth that, yes, Jojo Bob admits that he did a thing? You can't reconcile without the truth. And very good point, Sugar. So yeah, the mauling has been really funny. But it also, it's interesting because it made me think about, I'm going to change my title because I'm switching topics, but only kind of, sort of. The decline of empathy. And that's going to be way too long, so we'll just go decline of empathy. Yay! I'm learning. Empathy is on the decline. That's an actual interesting concept. I've heard people cite that, oh yeah, empathy is on the decline. COVID has made people less empathetic. And I do believe that. I do think that that's a valid statement. But actually, empathy has been on decline for a lot longer than that. And that's an interesting thing for me to think about. So what I mean when I say that is empathy, obviously, we're talking about the ability to, you know, feel what, you know, for another human being, to have a compassionate, emotional reaction to what someone else has experienced. Could be. In a lot of ways, that's a very human thing, but not in every way. And that's a weird and creepy thing. So, what do I mean when I say that? What do I mean when I say that? We actually try to teach empathy out of people in a lot of professions. The best example, the most obvious example, is doctors. Doctors are taught to have emotional distancing from patients, to not allow their emotions to sway the decisions. And there's reasons for that. But those are very, very sort of sociopathic end goals, right? Cut off your emotions from your actions. You know, kind of doing a gross there, but it's you know, I get how it's necessary in the realm of doctrine. But business is the same, right? If you think about, you know, there's that faulty statistic that gets flown around all the time that, like, you know, 4% of the population is sociopaths or whatever, or no, it's not that. It's that, you know, the majority of people in government are sociopaths, and that is bullshit. Or government and heading up industry, those things are the bullshit. The reality is that the percentage of people who are in our population is roughly 4% who are sociopaths, and that percentage in top of industry and government positions is slightly higher. But here's the thing, we're actually teaching people that, because those skills are important from a business or a government perspective, at least how we view these things. So if you're working in an HR department and you've got to lay off a town, you can't have your emotions in any way impact your decision, because how do you live with yourself? So we're teaching students in a scholarly setting, we're teaching them to divorce themselves from their actions. And I don't think this is new. I think this has just been, you know, it's capitalism, baby. But I think as a result, we keep promoting the idea of, you know, strength and independence and all of these things as being vital to our character and to being fully formed adults. And I personally think that at the end of the day, that leads us down a road where empathy is going to be on the decline because we're being taught not to care about other people. And I think that this has been going on a lot longer. And in fact, it has. And I should be saying that this is also happening on both sides. When I talk about on both sides, the empathy decline thing, most of the information I've read about it has been about people who are willing to get vaccinated, people who are willing to wear masks, and how, in the start of this, we were all like, oh my God, we're all going to pull through together and we're going to, we can do this. We can overcome the horrible pandemic and we're unity. And then that went away because hogs were out marching and interrupting walks for Indigenous children because they just want to make sure that everyone hears their hog voices making hog noises. Yay, hogs. That's one side of it. I would say that on both sides, I didn't sort of finish that point. When we got to a place where vaccines became available for mass consumption, I feel like that was a tipping point for a lot of people who were still holding hope for that whole unity and togetherness kind of vibe, because we finally had that thing that could get us out of all of this. And the hogs are like, I'm not taking that. That's Jew medicine. I ain't taking it. The CDC. You want the CDC putting chemicals in it? Yes, I fucking do. And that tipping point hit, and I think people's ability to relate to the anti-mask folks and all of that just was like, gone. I know mine did. I have been an asshole. I'm trying not to be, but I have been an asshole. I got a message yesterday. Some dude who is on my friends list, who's like a friend of some people I know. I think he's a musician from somewhere. Sent me a message, and he wasn't rude, but he, you know what? Let's read it. I won't name names because, again, I don't particularly know the person. But he said, hey, I'm not looking for an argument here at all, and I appreciate a lot of what you said in your latest vaccine Facebook commentary. I would suggest, though, that if you think it's okay that an immunization, in quotes, doesn't immunize the vast majority of people that are inoculated, and then attempt to coerce the entire world's population to take it voluntarily, well, we're just looking the other way. As well, from what I can tell, natural immunity is significantly more protective against variants that might emerge. Lastly, the situation has spilled into the human population on purpose at worst and accidentally at best, and credible evidence for that is freely available. I really think we should be looking for whoever's responsible rather than pointing proverbial fingers at intelligent people who want to be sure they need it before they get it. Just my thoughts. So I gave a very kind and non-assertive rebuttal. But the reality is there's a bunch of points here that are stupid, and I can't empathize with this person. First off, I would suggest, though, that if you think it's okay that an immunization doesn't immunize the vast majority of people that are inoculated, okay, fuck your face. That's dumb. That is, the people who are vaccinated are, immunized. If you mean now it's a bulletproof vest, then yeah, absolutely. But nothing is a bulletproof vest. The chickenpox vaccine is not a bulletproof vest. Neither is having chickenpox. That's why there's shingles. It is not about preventing 100%. It's about doing our best to prevent, which is a kind of a thing. So if you doesn't immunize the majority of people that are inoculated, and then attempt to coerce the entire world's population to take it voluntarily, well, you're just looking the other way. No, I'm not trying to coerce the world's population into doing anything. I think the world's population should be fucking smart enough to go, oh, there is a bad thing. I have a simple way to not have the bad thing cause me to be a dead person. I'm going to do that. And also, not take my entire society with it. Even better. From what I can tell, natural immunity is significantly more protective against variants that might emerge. Bullshit. Bullshit. I will give credit to the fact that we know that natural immunity, meaning someone who has become sick, shows very strongly that a lot of people have long-lasting resilience as if they were vaccinated. However, that is not 100%, and it appears to be variable in a lot of ways that we don't understand yet. But some people, we heard early on about people getting a second case of COVID. That means that their natural immunity was not perfect. And it means that we don't have a clear answer. In some cases, some people survive well and develop antibodies that will last longer than the vaccine. In other cases, we don't. We just don't fucking know yet. We don't have enough data. And to say that it's significantly more protective against variants that might emerge is fucking stupid. The whole point of the variant argument is these are mutations, and some of them could be real fucking bad. Real fucking bad. So if a virus replicates, his argument that his natural ability to defend against it would make him even more resilient to the mutation. But maybe the mutation works against his natural resiliency more so than it would against the vaccine. These are stupid arguments, because what we're talking about is an imaginary world where we can predict the way that mutation might take place. And it turns out we can't. So that's dumb. And then the lab link thing. Lastly, the situation was spilled into the human population on purpose at worst and accidentally at best. That is always true. Because let's go back to the original idea of the wet market and just rule out the whole, let's pretend for a second that there was no possible way that the lab leak could be real. So, homeboy eats a bat, because obviously that's what those people do in that strange, wacky country. Eats a bat, gets sick. That was an accident. No matter what, nobody there's only two possible. It's either it happened accidentally or it happened on purpose. What's our third option? So stupid argument. The idea of it being an accidental leak, certainly possible, not proven, and his quote unquote credible evidence for that is freely available. No. I can speak good. Credible evidence that leads us in the direction of considering this as a potential initial vector. Absolutely. That does exist. But there is no evidence that it happened. We don't have that yet. At least as far as I understand things. China has been very guarded about allowing investigation into this. There's a million things that are getting in the way. It seems really, really fucking incorrect and super sketch to be like, this is proof. Again, this is a lack of understanding how evidence works. So I would say absolutely that there is credible reason for us to investigate and to get the data in order to understand. In terms of whether it was an intentional release of a bioweapon, fuck off. If China was going to release a bioweapon, they would send it to America. They wouldn't unleash it first on their own population, wreaking havoc on their population to the point where it can spread outside. That's just baseless dumb. I legit don't understand how people can even hold that as unless China is so Machiavellian that they're like, you know what we could do, old chap? We could release it, and that way no one will ever think it was us. Bullshit. That is silly. Again, we're talking Occam's razor. Is it more likely that A, the vaccine somehow crossed over from animals to humans? That has happened plenty of times in the past. There's reason to believe that that's possible. B, that it was accidentally leaked from people doing research on viruses in a lab? Absolutely possible. Totally possible. Or C, a bioweapon. Well, I personally think that is a leap too far, and it certainly doesn't pass Occam's razor. It is not the simplest of answers. unless you color your whole perspective with a hate for the Asians. That's a thing. And then I really think we should be looking for whoever is responsible rather than pointing the proverbial fingers at intelligent people who want to be sure they need it before they get it. We can do both. The assumption that anyone who is arguing the viability of getting a vaccination is just intrinsically intelligent is a dumb assumption. It doesn't mean you're intelligent. It could mean you're a complete idiot and you're believing fucking Tucker Carlson over actual science. I don't know if that's ever happened before, but it seems to be happening now. Second, the reality is we're not talking about you can only do one of those things. This is like those arguments where people are like, why are we bringing in refugees when we have veterans? Okay, well, how's the veterans? No. Like, we can actually do both. We can bring in refugees and house veterans. We can investigate the whole lab leak theory, which I think we should, and at the same time be promoting the idea that whether that is true or not is completely unrelated to whether or not the vaccine is providing an effective measure for protection of individuals and the public healthcare system the world over, and therefore is a necessary evil that we need to do. Those things are not mutually exclusive. This is the problem with the way people don't understand logic. In logic, you have or, XOR, and AND. An AND condition means you have to have both things being true. An OR condition means one or both of the things can be true. And an XOR, or exclusive OR, means only one can be true. So in the case of a situation like his statement is, we should be looking for whoever's responsible or pointing the finger at intelligent people who want to be sure they need it before they get it. They're not exclusive, so therefore we can do both. We can fucking do both. Stupid. How did that relate to empathy? I can't empathize with his perspective. And I basically said in my response, I was kind. I was like, hey, we obviously disagree on some of these things. I don't see that as being an exclusive argument, for example. I think we can do both. Blah, 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 blah. Thank you for your tone. And his tone was, it wasn't aggressive. And again, it's somebody I don't even know. Most of the time when you hear about somebody you don't even know sending you a message on Facebook to disagree with you about a Facebook post, it's like, rape threats and death threats and shit. So I was very grateful that it wasn't that. But that doesn't mean it was a good conversation. Anyways. Empathy is on the decline, and I think this has gone for a long time. In fact, I was poking around on the old internet. I'll see if I can find what I was looking at. Back to Google. Decline, empathy decline. So, levels of empathy fell by 48% between 1979 and 2009. So it turns out, those numbers long before COVID came around. But I think it's worth looking at. Individuals harm matter in themselves, but they can also feed it into wider systemic risks. For example, this is not what I was looking at, and that's just awkward. Why is empathy on the decline? Let's just look at what we have here. This is from Scientific American. Okay, what me care? Young are less empathetic. That feels shady. God, I'm expecting a lot of cookies today. Recent study, and keep in mind this is from 2011. Recent study finds a decline in empathy among young people in the U.S. Humans are unlikely to win the animal kingdom's prize for fastest, strongest, or largest, but we are world champions at understanding one another. This interpersonal prowess is fueled, at least in part, by empathy, our tendency to care about and share other people's emotional experiences. Empathy is a cornerstone of human behavior and has long been considered innate. A forthcoming study, however, challenges this assumption by demonstrating that empathy levels have been declining over the past 30 years. Research led by Sarah H. Conrath of the University of Michigan at Ann Arbor and published in Personality and Social Psychology Review found that college students' self-reported empathy has declined since 1980, with an especially steep drop in the last 10 years. To make matters worse, during the same period, students' self-reported narcissism has reached new heights, according to research by Jean M. Twenge, or however I say that name, a psychologist at San Diego University. Now, it's important to note that this is all self-reporting, and it's all this is a social science kind of a thing, psychology, obviously. So, how does one quantitatively define empathy and how much empathy we have? Is it possible that changes in overall society make us feel like we are less empathetic than we, in fact, we are? Absolutely. All of these studies need to be taken with that grain of salt, because you cannot measure in a quantitative fashion. You cannot measure empathy. And right here, an individual's empathy can be assessed in many ways, but one of the most popular is simply asking people what they think of themselves. The Interpersonal Reactivity Index, a well-known questionnaire, taps empathy by asking whether responders agree to statements such as, I often have tender, concerned feelings for people less fortunate than me, and I try to look at everybody's side of a disagreement before I make a decision. What's to blame? The information seems to conflict with studies suggesting that empathy is a trait people are born with. For example, in 2007 study, Yale University developmental psychologists found that 6-month-old infants demonstrate an affinity for empathic behavior, preferring simple dolls they have seen helping others over visually similar bullies. I don't understand what that means. 6-month-old infants demonstrate an affinity for empathetic behavior, preferring simple dolls they've seen helping others over. Oh, okay. So they have a doll that looks like something that has been helpful, and a doll that looks like something that has been bullying. And 6-month-old babies prefer the non-bullying doll. And investigators at the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology in Leipzig have shown that even when given no incentive, toddlers help experimenters and share rewards with others. Empathic behavior is not confined to humans or even to primates. In a recent study, mice reacted more strongly to painful stimuli when they saw another mouse suffering, suggesting they share the pain of their cage mates. Another example of this is the rather cruel study that was done, the monkey in the cage, that if it gets a treat, the other monkey gets zapped, and the stress on that monkey was pretty insane. I'm not by any means an expert on that, but I remember reading about it in like college psych class and being like, "Ooh, that's a gross fucking experiment." New finding is that empathy is on the decline, indicates that even when a trait is hardwired, social context can exert a profound effect, changing even our most basic emotional responses. Precisely what is sapping young people of their natural impulse to feel for others remains mysterious. However, because scientists cannot design a study to evaluate changes that occurred in the past, as Twenge puts it, you can't randomly assign people to a generation, which is true. My own personal take on this is I think it's a combination of the way that we're pressing people in general. And I'm talking about the fact that, you're not going to have a home unless you work your ass off. You're certainly never going to own one if you're a Gen Z or millennial, unless someone dies or you get, very lucky in some way. You are, you have to work 3 jobs and constantly be in competition with everybody around you for, gig work and shit like that. All of these things make empathy unappealing because it stops. If for example, using the gig economy concept, if you're trying to survive and someone else is trying to survive and they're not doing as well, there's a natural empathic feeling to say, you know what, why don't you take the next gig? I'll wait. You need this more than I do. And when enough social pressure comes on you or economic pressure comes on you that you can't do that, that kills off your ability to be empathetic or empathic or whatever. I'm going to say empathetic because that's the word I know. If I'm wrong, then so be it. But I do think it's interesting, and I think it's interesting that we keep thinking this is new when, clearly it is anything but. That study was in 2011, or at least the reporting on it was in 2011. So empathy's been on the decline for a long time. I think that our understanding of one another is definitely being hurt right now. I think that we are being goaded into political camps that are very us and them, a very corporate mind frame of if you're not with us, you're against us. And I think that situations like COVID bring out our questioning of why the fuck am I caring about you if you're going to be, some asshole who stomps through a walk for missing and murdered children, and you go, haha, I am here to promote that masks are bad. It's kind of, these things are all leading us. They're very polarizing. You're absolutely right, Sugar. And polarization is a serious fucking problem that we're just gonna have to fucking get over. I think it's actually worrying to me to see how we are socially interacting with one another. How last week we watched, or was it the week before? I can't remember which, but we watched I think it was 2 weeks ago. We watched the TED Talk that Eric Bischoff did, where he talks about the change in news from being we want to make you think to we want to make you feel, and how that related to the professional wrestling industry and how that's always been their shtick. And that's, we watch the news and we're not thinking, we're feeling, because Tucker Carlson's telling you that immigrants are coming for your jobs. And that makes us go, wait, I like my job, or at least I like, owning things that comes from having a job. I don't want these immigrants. That's terrible. Rather than thinking and being like, shut up, Tucker, you're a fucking idiot. The numbers are not on your side. In fact, immigration is a net positive. Even among the poor countries coming to the rich countries actually is a net positive on essentially everybody. That is a sweeping generalization, and I guarantee you that there will be individual data points that are not accurate, but, by and large, a net positive. We're seeing major problems with hiring people right now because immigration. We're not doing the immigration thing. We're too busy hitting people with reins to let them immigrate properly. That's a whole separate conversation. I don't even know where I was going with that, but the world's fucked and we need to do better. Okay. When my brain starts doing that, it tells me it's time for me to take a quick little break. I'm going to put a different song on, and it's going to be, I'll just play the traditional, my background music. Where the fuck is it? It's on my drive as my awkward songs. And then it's called Backdrop Music. And it's loading. Oh, I'm missing a supercharger for, that doesn't matter. All right. So I'm going to press play on this, and then I'm going to go for smoke. Go outside for a few minutes. And then we will be back, and we'll talk about more stuff. And then I'll do my weekly humiliations. Is that playing? Did I hit play? I did not hit play. So much cooler when you actually hit the button. All right. BRB, LOL, ROFL, MAO, OMG, STFU me. All right. have returned. All right, let's get rid of the thing on my face. And hey, welcome back. That was a fine little couple of minutes of me doing other thing. I think we're at the just chatting stage. I don't have a whole lot of. There's other stuff that I could talk about, but you know, we're here, we're doing it. Yeah. So we had some good chat so far. It's been fairly quiet stream today. Not a big surprise. I am a small stream Andy, ever and always, but nonetheless, I'm glad to be able to just have this as a space where I can vent my spleen as I do, and hopefully y'all enjoy too. Either way, life is good. You know what? I want to talk about I didn't hear about this. I kind of want to just poke around and figure some stuff out. Apparently, Lauren Southern has been banned from Twitch, presumably because Lauren Southern is fucking awful and deserves to be banned from everything on Earth. But let's find out the particulars. And hopefully in a way that doesn't TOS me. All right. Lauren Southern Twitch. No, the ABJ. I don't know anything about this, but Australian Business Journal. Controversial political activist Lauren Southern banned from Twitch. I won't do that voice. I'm just kidding. YouTuber and Twitch streamer Lauren Southern found herself unable to access her Twitch handle on September 20th after she was banned from the platform. So I'm not sad about this. Lauren Southern is awful. If you're not familiar with Lauren Southern, you're probably not from Canada. And you are also absolutely not missing anything. Lauren Southern is a monster. According to this, a political activist and a best-selling author as well, owns a YouTube channel with over 600,000 subscribers. As soon as you see someone has over 600,000 subscribers, there are certain rules you can guarantee. Number one, they are a conservative. Number two, they are probably awful. And number three, especially if they're Canadian, they probably bought a lot of those subscribers. I don't know. We'll see. Her best-selling book, Barbarians, How the Baby Boomers, Immigration, and Islam Screwed My Generation, was released in 2016, and it has given her a recognition of a political controversial activist on the internet. Just reading that title, I've never read her book, I have no desire to read her book, but just reading that, oh yeah. Taking to her official Twitter handle, Lauren explained the reason behind her Twitch ban. She wrote, "Well, I just got banned off Twitch, lol." That's not explaining the reason. In a separate tweet, the political activist said that she was banned for hate speech due to the title of her stream. So it looks like it's a temporary suspension for hate speech, she said. I was invited on a panel discussing whether transgenderism is a mental illness. And I just put the panel discussion topic in the title of my video. So actually, I do know a little bit about this. She was on, what was that? Politically Provoked is a debate stream on Twitch. I followed it for a while. I think I still have a follow on it, but I never pay attention because essentially I now refer to it as politically promoting groypers. They regularly have just the worst right-wing chuds on, and it's kind of gross to be a part of. And the chat is always full of groypers. If you're not familiar with groypers, they are the fans of Nick Fuentes who like to do things like Pepe spamming and all of that. They're just they're the little white kids who really feel that not being able to use the hard R is an infringement on their freedoms. And so I've stayed away from Politically Provoked. But Politically Provoked had that discussion, debate. They're notorious for having they try to be left and right. They have a left moderator and a right moderator, and I think the left moderator, Brittany, recently got into. Let's just see if we can find, because again, I don't pay attention. Politically provoked Brittany. This is not that recent. Politically provoked is imploding Pepe laugh from r/Destiny. I don't like Destiny either, so let's see what this was. Debate rulings on who won, lost, various. Okay, that's big. But again, yeah, Big Papa Fascist is someone that regularly is on Politically Provoked. I don't know if I can find it. There was some kind of recent. I can't find it. Some kind of recent brouhaha involving Politically Provoked and Brittany going a little bit mask off and not being as left as one might have assumed. So yeah, Lauren Southern got temporary suspension because she set her title to "Is Transgenderism a Mental Illness?" I personally, I can't speak to whether that's too far or I know that Twitch has policies, like it says here, strict policies regarding hate speech and violation of community guidelines that can result in a streamer getting banned. The question that was presented was, what about Politically Provoked? What about the other debaters on the panel? And the answer that I saw from people was that, well, Lauren's the only one who put that as the title of her stream. I don't think it's unfair to say that Twitch probably has a bit of a hard-on for paying attention to Lauren Southern and probably holds her to a unique standard because of who Lauren Southern is. Nor do I think it's a bad thing that Lauren Southern is gone. Lauren Southern is a right-wing figure who is now pretending to be not so right-wing, more of a concerted centrist, in much the same way that like Milo Yiannopoulos is no longer gay, and that Pastor Ted Haggard stopped doing meth and getting fisted by male hookers. I feel like a lot of the time those retribution arcs are garbage. Certainly Lauren Southern, if she is genuine in her having evolved into a better person, then great. But Lauren Southern was garbage for a very fucking long time, and I don't give shit, number one, about whether or not Lauren Southern becomes a better person, unless she actively undoes the harm she does. Like, I watched a video today about Hunter Avalon, who's another Twitch streamer. And it was from the Tabernacle. Looking at his change, because he was a very right-wing YouTuber early on in his career, and had a debate with Vosh, and basically got called out on a lot of points, and it made him start thinking, and it made him eventually step away from the right. He's now very much a prominent left-wing streamer, or at least mostly left-wing. He's still very pro-life and things like that. I enjoy Hunter Avalon's content. The Cabernacle's complaint about it was that all of his old content is still there, and he makes videos debunking his old content and watching it and saying, yeah, this is garbage, but there is a certain amount of validity to the question of like, okay, dude, how far are you going here? Are you going to actually remove that content and stop making money off of it? Because presumably you're still getting watches. It's a valid thing. Anyways, who knows? Who cares? These kinds of things. You can never know what's in somebody's heart. And maybe Lauren Southern is just a really good person deep down who's learned a lesson and is now a better human being. But I haven't seen any evidence of that. And I watched a debate that she did with the Surfs, or Lance from the Surfs, and I can't remember the other left-wing debater. Had a great name, and it was very, very indigenous name. I believe it's an indigenous streamer, but something with rabbits in the title. It's just not coming to me. I don't know them and I don't follow their content, so that's part of it. And then on the Lauren Southern's partner was Counterpoints, who is very much a centrist, and that debate was boring. And in the end, Lance, in his closing statement, tried to attack Lauren for all of her previous arguments, and very much, I think, failed. Nothing against it, like, speaking truth to evil is probably still a good thing, but didn't come across as scoring any points or making Lauren Southern look like the monster that I think Lauren Southern is. I don't want to debate Lauren Southern. It's not about platforming people. I just don't want to debate people. I actually have never done a debate. I have no desire to do a debate. I would probably do like a panel conversation, but I don't like the idea of debates because debates, you're not winning a debate. You never win a debate. You just yell your points over top of Rob Knorr screaming, and congratulations for being slightly louder than Rob Knorr. Doesn't make you right. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. Lauren Southern banned off Twitch, probably a good thing, because I don't think the retribution arc is very retribution-y, and I think that Lauren probably is still every bit the monster that I expect that she always has been. Another thing I was going to bring up, this was a thought I had the other day. I was talking with a friend, and he was talking, I'm a master debater. Hey, we all know, late at night I'll debate the shit out of myself, but not on stream. Not on stream. It's not how I do. Although I do get emails periodically from people who claim that they have hacked my phone or my computer and have video evidence of me doing horrible things to my body, and they will bribe or hold me hostage for that. And I laugh and go, okay, release that shit. People are going to be like, wow, that guy's kind of fat and his penis isn't that impressive. Like, okay, I can probably live my whole life with that happening and not giving a shit. So whatever, do your worst, internet bad guys. And it never happens because it's all just bullshit. Anyways, the thought I had was talking about the current, I would say, mindlessness of the super far right and their arguments about vaccines and masks and all of these things, and the just general distrust of the evidence of science and of our eyes and stuff. And I was talking about this, I'm pretty sure it was with my buddy Donko, who is a scientist. He's also an engineer, but he is a paleoanthropologist. How you get to be both is, I could do an entire stream on how cool my friend Donko is. But he was like, we've never seen this kind of rejection of real knowledge, like in human history. And I was like, I disagree. If you think back, way back, to a little time called the Greek days, and the burning of the Library of Alexandria. I don't know how much truth there is to the things that I know about that, because, I'm not a historian and I've only sort of picked up stuff along the way. But my understanding of things is that the Christians at the time were so genuinely and deeply anti-intellectual that they destroyed the Library of Alexandria and burned all of the scrolls, and a huge amount of human knowledge was lost in that single action. But that this was not in any way a single action. This was the sign of the times. The Christians were just anti-thinking. And that led us in all the way through the Middle Ages and stuff, which anti-thinking is actually a pretty good descriptor for all that came after. Doing good. Can't wait to sing in a few minutes. I just found it like an interesting conversation where, the idea that people are we're reverting back to Middle Ages thinking when it comes to COVID, when it comes to the world around us. And I hope that's not true. I hope that we just, that this is a temporary glitch and we move forward, because I don't want to live through the Dark Ages. Obviously I won't, because the Dark Ages tends to be a little bit longer than, the span of a human life. And I've already shit away half my life on stupid stuff. So that's a thing. But yeah, I would prefer it if we didn't die. I would prefer it if we lived. Living seems good. You know, climate change being what it is, maybe it won't be so good. Maybe it'll be pretty goddamn shitty. I know my allergies have been fucking brutal this year, and I blame climate change because, and then I don't really blame climate change, but they are certainly the worst they've been in a very long time. To the point, and nothing is cooler than having a massive allergy problem that involves postnasal drip and constantly coughing during a global health pandemic. Let me tell you, I'm very popular. One of my friends got COVID. This is new. Not that this is the first person I've known to get COVID or anything, but one of my bandmates in one of my bands actually had. So he's got kids, and they are in school, and they were infected with COVID from an outbreak in the classroom. And fortunately, I have not. You know, there's no risk to me and mine from this. We haven't seen each other since this would have happened. But yeah, the school found out that there was a case in the class. They went for tests, and it turns out that the whole family has COVID. The kids were completely no symptoms whatsoever, completely asymptomatic. He said, you know, he didn't feel great for a couple of days, but nothing terrible, which is good. He's doubly vaccinated, so that would have helped. But yeah, it doesn't make you invincible to COVID, so why even get the vaccine? Here, fuck off. All right, I think we're at the time where I'm gonna do my weekly humiliations. Does that sound like fun? I'll let chat have a moment to decide if that sounds like fun. Just type yes if you think it sounds like fun. The hundreds of thousands of you that are watching currently. And by that I mean Sugar and my kiddo Abby and potentially Shanuala, who is a new person, a new face. Either way, no one said yes. So that means, fuck it, I'm doing it anyways. Because goddamn it, I can. So once again, weekly humiliations, my way of fighting back against the Bezos. No one ever needs to send me money. But if you wanted to, this would be the thing that you would send me money and I would perform and humiliate myself. And I'm just going to do it anyways. I'm going to do the free one and I'm going to do the bad karaoke as well. Because again, I'm the boss of my world and I do what I fucking want. And god damn it. Let me just quickly set this up here like. And I gotta go there, and I push this, and then immediately hit pause, and then make sure that it looks okay. It looks okay. All right, so let's fade over. And, well, aside from the faces I had to make in order to hit all of those notes, I did all right. That's gonna leave a mark. I'm actually surprised though. And I constantly have that like beaker, like meep, 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 during that. But you know, whatever. It works. It works. All right. Does anyone want to? Is there any topics that you guys want to just chat about while you got me? Besides all the clapping, which of course, you know, go on with you. Oh, go on. That's fun. I enjoy humiliating myself like that. It's a good time. It works for me. Because I'm basically at that place where I'm like, I think, unless anyone wants to talk about something specific, I think it's probably time to pull the plug. And call it a day. No one's getting back to me, so just gonna call it there then. All right. Thank you guys all for watching. If you want to support, click follow. If you want to super support, you can always like subscribe to my Patreon or whatever and do the Patreon thing, which I think is in the, I don't know, somewhere on something. There's probably a link somewhere. If not, it's patreon.com/BigUglyJim. I typically go by Big Ugly Jim, but what is havering for real? You know what? Let's do a little research stream into havering because I do not know. Yeah, you can. I go by Big Ugly Jim. That's been a nickname for a very long time. And I am only a big ugly Jim here. Okay, well, that's Portuguese. I think like that's not necessarily the answer. What does the word haver mean in English? There we go. To talk nonsense gibberish, to speak rubbish. Well, that speaks to me. Regional variations may substitute slaver in this instance, which also means, oh, slaver. Oh, good. I'm glad it was. I was like, that's a pretty horrible. Slaver in this instance, which means to drool or salivate, as well as talk nonsense. Ah, you're just slavering. It is a Scottish word, which makes sense because the Proclaimers are a Scottish band. While the chief puts sunshine on Leith, I will be with you. If you've never listened to the Proclaimers, there's not a lot of incredible depth, but it is good. It's good stuff. Yeah, there's definitely a lag. I see the lag because I've got my TV is casting the Twitch, so I do have that. But yeah, so we've learned something. Not just did we learn about Lauren Southern's tumultuous and saddening band that we're all very sad about. No more Lauren Southern. But we learned that I can sing the Proclaimers. We learned what a havering would be, which is to talk nonsense or gibberish, which is most of what... Maybe I'll change my channel to the unrelenting havering. And what else? We talked about some other stuff. We talked about COVID restrictions and the mandates and how funny that shit is to me. We talked about empathy. We talked about the whole, like, the Q chuds and the conservative thoughts and how we're kind of moving backwards in time to the Middle Ages and the time leading up to that. We talked about King Ralphus decline. We talked about voting and how silly the whole thing is, but how important the whole thing is. We talked about separation. We talked about a bunch of shit. So I feel like I've done a solid job. I feel like I've earned this here delicious Lucky Lager beer. Yes, it is 2:46 in the afternoon, and I'm starting in on a beer. But you know what? I can do that. I'm gonna hang out for a little bit longer, and just, if anyone wants to chat about stuff, we can chat, and I'll just babble inherently and drink this beer. I will say this much regarding politically provoked. I do not like. I guess I'll talk about like the whole debate thing, and I don't think that it makes sense to for me. I'm not talking about for everybody, but for me, I don't think it makes sense to bother with debates because I feel like I do a good job conversating with people, and I could probably do all right in a debate, but I don't have a desire to, because when I watch debates, I don't see people doing debate well. I see them arguing and gish galloping and throwing out bullshit statistics that you don't have time to react to. It's just not the thing for me. When I say I would do a panel discussion, I would totally have an interesting conversation with people who are at least somewhat like-minded. I don't mind having, disagreement, but when the purpose of it, like a panel debate versus a panel discussion, the debate thing just doesn't interest me because I am a socialist. I am a libertarian socialist, and I don't want to sit in a room, digitally, obviously, with like a guy like Bib Papa Fascist or the trolls that are on Politically Provoked, or even like Rob Knorr, who are the sort of prominent right wing voices in the debate brosphere. And they go, hey, I feel like this, and they rumble and they get moldy and all this kind of shit, and it's just like, I don't need that shit. I'll have a conversation. There are definitely YouTube streamers I would love to have just a regular chat with, and explore points and talk about things. But yeah, the whole debate thing just does nothing for me. Those people are just too ridiculous to respond to. Right? That's part of the problem. Is like it's not that I'm frightened of the takes of these people. They're just toilets. Not all of them, but like a good chunk of them are garbage, and they're not worth my time. I don't believe in the whole thing of like, you should never platform somebody like that. I've seen people make those kinds of comments before about, like someone like Big Papa Fascist. Like, why are you platforming him? Well, I haven't and I wouldn't, but that's because I don't have any desire to interact with them. I don't disagree that there's good that can be done by people in a debate scenario, like the story of Hunter Ravelon that I mentioned earlier. He was well on that alt-right train and then had a debate with Vosh, and Vosh gave him pause to go, wait, what? And actually question his opinions. That is a cool thing, and I'm completely cool with that. But it's just not the vibe for me. I see Dr. Lucy Love has joined us. Hello, Dr. Lucy Love. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're having a great day. If you're new to the channel and you want to throw up a follow, you're certainly welcome to. We're at the kind of tail end. You missed me just doing my weekly humiliations, unless you didn't miss it. I don't know if you missed it or not. It's been a fun chat so far, and we're just sort of winding down and chatting about whatever. Politically provoked has never struck me as something that I want to pay attention to. I watched a couple of debates early in my being on Twitch, and I have not been on Twitch terribly long. But I found that the debates, there were some really good debaters on both sides. There were good people on both sides, he said trumpily. But there's just so, especially on that channel, it's so often that they have like one person like Sonsol and then like 18 little groiper shitheads who are like, let me tell you about the N-word. Like, fuck right off. These are not conversations I need to have. I'm an old ass man. I've lived a long time. Don't let the lack of gray fool you. I'm old. And I just don't feel, I've been a punk rocker for a long, long time. I have fought to keep Nazis out of my scene. I have done all of the things necessary to not all the things, whatever. I'm babbling at this point, but you know what I mean? Like I don't put up with that shit. And now that I'm old, I don't need to walk into those conversations. If, for example, someone was to, I was having a conversation, let's just say I was out at a bar with a friend of mine and they started in on that kind of shit. Yeah, you're damn right. I would take them to task on every bullshit thing they were saying. But to just like, hey, I know, I'll debate the existence of God with a guy named a Big Papa Fascist. No, I'm good. I'm fucking all right. Do not need to do that. I think I'd enjoy debating Rob Noor. Again, no desire to debate, but I think I'd enjoy debating Rob Noor just to like know that I was the cause of him growing red in the face and yelling, and calling me a communist. Because I guarantee you, as a hearty socialist, I would make all those boxes check, and he would just like, there'd be the steam coming out of the ears, and I would enjoy that. But that's not, the world doesn't need that to happen. In fact, I guarantee you the world does not want that to happen, does not need that to happen. And it would be a waste of his time. It would be a waste of my time. I'm not going to win him over. He's not going to win me over. It would just be us flapping our teeth at each other and going, rawr. And he's probably better at it than me too, to be fair. I think one of the things people will do when they get into the world of Twitch is they're like, oh yeah, I could do a debate. I could do that. I don't know. Maybe if I cared, I could learn how to do it. But there's like a whole thing there that I just don't give a shit about. Like I say, I would totally do a panel chat. I've been thinking about starting a panel of talking about men's issues, and not from the shitty MRA incel bullshit take, but the legitimate side of it. Talking like I know that I think Dylan and Shark 300. No, it's Shark. Who is it? Is it Shark 300 and Sonsol? I think have a panel similar in nature to that, and I just think it's a good conversation to have where we can talk about making how the toxic masculinity in our culture is causing us problems, because that's a very real thing, and I've suffered from it as like any dude that doesn't get that they've suffered from toxic masculinity just doesn't understand toxic masculinity, period, end of sentence. Or you're actually like a natural born chud, and like you just can't the ideal Chad male bullshit is exactly who you are. But I don't think that's the case for anybody. Those are caricatures. And if you are a caricature, seek help. I like pissing off those people. Me too. I've always gotten a kick out of peeing on the legs of people who are like that, and just not backing down and not being especially like, when I was, I'll give you a story. When I was 18, so like 80 years ago, I was working in Northland Mall, and I had a bunch of kids that I knew from hanging out because I used to go to school at Sir Winston Churchill across the street. And so I knew a bunch of the mall rat kids and stuff. And I was working in the arcade, so I knew a bunch of the mall rat kids. And like overnight, a bunch of them decided that they would become white supremacists. And I did not see this coming. It was just like all of a sudden there's these Nazi skinheads. And I'm like, I know half these kids. What the fuck just happened? And I was sitting down with a buddy of mine in the food court after work one day. And this kid, Terry, came up, and Terry had shaved his head, and he was like full on white boy soldier. And I was like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? Like, you're better than this. And I guess that what had happened was there was some dude that had moved to the neighborhood, and that was a super nice guy, and everybody really liked this dude. And this is a guy who'd like grown up in a clan family. And so he was, spreading the good word of hate. And we had this conversation. And I mean, like, you have to remember, like, I'm a big, strong fella now. That was not always the case. When I was a 18-year-old boy, I was 6'2" and 130 pounds. That is so thin that if you type that into a BMI calculator, it's like you've made an error. That actually happened the last time I did that. I was 6'2", 130 pounds. I graduated college several years later, 135 pounds. So I was really putting on the weight. Obviously, physically, very tall, very skinny, and very weak. So it's not like I was, some big muscly dude who was like, I can fight all of the Nazis. No, I would have gotten eaten alive. But I also have never been one to back down. So homeboy starts in on his I'm not saying, and literally all the shit that they say now, he was saying back then. Why is it wrong for me to be proud of being white when other people can be proud of their ethnicity? And I didn't have the words to dispute him at the time because, this was, early in my life. And I didn't know how to say things like, whiteness is not a race. It is a series of people who, very fluidly very fluid collection of people depending on the popular what is white at the time. And that we essentially represent the colonizers of the world, and that whiteness is imbued with authority and power. Even though individuals like myself, I have never been authoritative, and I have never been powerful. I've never been rich. I've never been all of these things. I have still had a lot of privileges that people who are not white have not had. I didn't have those words back then. So instead I was like, every time I hear someone say white pride, it's not about being proud of being white. It's about being a horrible fucking human being and making other people miserable. So, no, dude, you can't say that. Or you can, but you have to live with the fucking consequences. And at some point he's like, yeah, but I mean, like, if China invaded, and literally he said, now I didn't even think about that, but yeah, he was sure that China was going to invade. This again is like 100,000 years ago when I was an 18-year-old man. For those that are, if you're new to the stream, I am 48. So that's 30 years ago that the white supremacists have been sure that China was about to invade at any fucking day. So he's like, if China were to invade, like, you'd want to fight for them, against them, wouldn't you? And I was like, hey, dude, I'm a communist. I don't think I would give a shit, which is bullshit. The reality is, yes, I am a socialist, not a communist. But I certainly would not want to have lived under Chinese communism because it is a very horrifyingly bad take on communism, even on communism, let alone socialism or any of the many various differentiations. I would not want to have lived in Chinese communism. But I knew that by saying that, I would make his bumhole go 3 sizes smaller. And it did. And he was like, you're a goddamn pinko. And I was like, yep. And again, this kid would have destroyed me. He could have just reached across the table, pulled my face off, had a nice good snack. But I'm just not the type to back down. Never have been, never will be. And I didn't have the ability to back that up, but I sure as shit wasn't eating anybody's garbage. I sure as shit wasn't letting some fucking dude tell me that, you know, he was going to Nazi away and I just can't do nothing about it. Fuck that. So I didn't. Anyways, fun story. I don't remember how we got to that topic. I don't know. I noticed that my hair kind of has like what's the youngest kid? The youngest kid, they're all young. The kid from Rugrats, the little like, broop. If China invaded, we wouldn't be able to do shit. We would have to rely on the States not wanting Chinese neighbors. And the whole thing, like even 30 years ago, I was smart enough to be like, why the fuck would China invade? Like that doesn't make sense. China's not a land war kind of country, right? They've not done that. In fact, if you look at it, like I think China has something like 6 military bases that are not in China. I think that was a number that I saw versus America's like every 30 feet, it's like a Starbucks and then a military compound, the world over, right? It's you know, they're certainly not our friend, but the way that they want to fight us is not with guns on the streets. Yeah, they've got billion people. They could put up a hell of a good fight, but they don't need to. They already own our manufacturing and production. They already own our entire shipping and receiving. That whole thing we're talking about, supply chain, it's very, very big in the news right now because of COVID. I've been saying this shit for a long time. Without doing our own manufacturing, we are 100% at the mercy of those that do. And those that do, the largest of those is China. And they are a threat. I'm not one of those like, oh, the evil CCCP, goddamn Chinese Communist Party. Fuck that. Those people are just nuts. But there is a reality that China is not our friend nation. They are at best our other nation who just happens to be in the same country, our world as us. And they're not motivated to make sure we're okay. They're motivated to make sure they're okay. And our okay and their okay are very different things. They have, they're very different worldview. They just want to buy up our country one property at a time. That's how you fight a war these days. Totally. And you know what? If you think about the Cold War, which again, old as fuck, I lived through. The Cold War was certainly more directly violent. But again, directly is in giant quotations because it was supporting, like we would give money to the guns to the Contras in Nicaragua, because they were fighting against the Sandinistas who were supported by the Russians. But we didn't actually go to Russia and put them up, Joe. Let's fight. Let's do the dance of death. We didn't do any of that shit. We just fought these little proxy wars all over the place. And I feel like, this concept of boots on the ground is far less of a concern from a global peace perspective than economic threats like China represents. And I think like America represents for the entire fucking free world. And like Canada would love to represent if only we had anything of value besides oil and cheese. I'm kidding, of course. Canada is a great country. We're wonderful. Look at us all here with our Canuckiness. But yeah, that's, there's my 2 cents on that. I definitely, the property thing is definitely part of it. Like if you look at a place like Vancouver has a lot of Chinese investment, like a substantial amount of Chinese investment in property ownership. And that is definitely a thing. But I think the bigger issue is the supply chains and global production, because we are a consumer society and we have given the production of all of our consumption over to other countries. And we've done so because capitalism says it makes a lot of sense to, go with the cheapest labor, especially if you don't have to worry about things like, health and safety laws or child slavery laws or whatever, and you can just put all your work off to another country that doesn't have some of these little considerations, and the cost of living is remarkably cheaper and all that kind of shit. We don't even have the clean water advantage anymore. Yeah. I'm assuming China has a decent clean water in a system. I have no idea. I know our clean water is, like in cities, we're doing great. You get outside of the city and you're doing well water, and often it's bad. Certainly, clearly Mr. Trudeau has a plan to get clean water to all the reservations, and we just have to wait until his plan can come to fruition in 90 or 100,000 years. Go Justin. It's so weird being a Canadian right now, and everybody who is the world over, they're all like, Justin Trudeau is so handsome, to which I'm like, is he? Like, Aaron O'Toole's handsome in the same way, but I wouldn't think of him as a handsome man. I think I'm a handsome man, so maybe my perspective is all fucked up, but I think Justin Trudeau is sort of like an average looking dude. He's not chud ugly. Aaron O'Toole's not chud ugly. He just comes across as a wanker. But yeah, so everyone's like, oh, Justin Trudeau, he's such a dreamboat, and he's a fighter for the little guy, and he's like super progressive and everything. And like living in Canada, you're like, not even close. Not even close. All kinds of lead in Saskatchewan water right now. Oh, I did not know that. That's bad. Lead in the water is super, super bad because we have the heavy metal poisoning thing, which leads to higher crime. We can talk all we want about changes to the way we do policing and how it's resulted in lowering crime. But the thing that's lowered crime has been a reduction in the amount of exposure to environmental lead and cadmium, both of whom are heavy metals that cause us to more quickly react in a fight or flight fashion. I wonder about what impact that has on Detroit's crime rate, for example, because their water is full of heavy metals, and heavy metal poisoning is pretty fucking clear. So hopefully Saskatchewan, is this new, or is it, well, maybe I could Google that real quick, because I think that'd be an interesting thing. Let's find out together. That's the wrong window. There we go. Yes, I searched on what the hell Haver meant. Saskatchewan. I don't know how to spell Saskatchewan, honestly. Lead in water. Yeah, there you go. Let's see what it says. So this is a global news from 2019. Is there anything more recent? Let's click on news. 3 hours ago, from Dragon Boaters to... I don't think that's what we're looking for. 4 days ago, recreational drugs, industrial chemicals found in Saskatoon's wastewater. No, that's not what we're talking about. And for the record, yeah, you're going to find drugs in wastewater. That's just how the world goes. Regina, here we go. Regina lead water pipe replacement program could take 15 years, $36 million. This is from May. So a city report is recommending, is recommending a timeline of 15 years and a budget of $36 million to replace all the lead water service connections in Regina. I think this is actually like a problem in every town in Canada. I'm not sure, but I know like we have entire communities where lead is heavily used in the water service connections and stuff, and we just haven't been talking about it. The report was unanimously supported by the Operations and Services Committee Wednesday afternoon, though with some debate. The report now goes before City Council. If approved, the plan could see all work done by 2036. You're good? Okay. Councillor Cheryl Stadnichuk wanted to see the timeline moved up to an option of 10 years instead of 15, which would mean a higher cost. It's the health risks that we need to take quite seriously and try to address them as quickly as we can, and some people think 10 years is too long. I gotta say, like, I'm no expert in anything. I do recognize that change takes time, and changing like a system like, the water system, that is actually a huge undertaking. You need to know where all of the lead is. You can't just put in a new water system overnight. So that, that is going to take some time. I wonder if does that say anything about what like how much contamination is happening. Just taking a look here. Yeah, it doesn't say anything specifically. Let's see if we can find anything that goes into the particulars about like how much lead from fracking contaminating the aquifer. I did. So there's a separate lead issue that I wasn't aware of. See, that's me and my knowledge of Saskatchewan's lead and water problems. I'll tell you, tailing ponds and all of that shit, especially like Alberta's got a real problem with the oil sands. Essentially, what they've done is they've basically all of the shitty bad goo that comes as a result of making oil come out of the ground, especially in tar sands oil, which is what they call dirty oil. They basically take all the shitty chemicals and they put them in a cement pool and then cover it, and they're like, we're done. And it's like arsenic and shit like that. Like, I'm like, if you look into like tailing ponds, and then the concrete will break down, like, because no one's maintaining it, it'll break down and it will seep into the local water table and cause all kinds of fucking problems. But you know, those are problems for somebody else because the oil company already left. Yay. I work in oil and gas, and I have zero fucking love for that kind of shit because it is industry. It is an industry that is intentionally like murdering people, or at least poisoning the groundwater, and like zero fucks. Their cancer rate is super high too. Saskatchewan's cancer rate. Based on the fact that they've got, you know, high lead in the water, that's not surprising. You know, this is a thing. The more we abuse our planet, the more shitty we make it for ourselves. And you would think that means that there'd be a concerted effort that says, oh, we should actually fix things. We should make the world a better place. When in fact, that is not what happens. And it's, you know, sorry to say it, but it's capitalism. It costs a lot of money to fix the problems that we create. And it's way easier just to not. And our shareholders go, oh, well, I don't want to fix that tailing pond thing. What do you mean we got a bunch of arsenic? What are we supposed to do with that? Just, I don't know, leave it. Someone else can come along. The government will fix it. That is the answer, like 100 times out of 100. And our system, capitalism, is set up to do exactly that. It is set up to encourage companies to behave like this because that's all it can do. And that sucks. That sucks donkey balls. But it's also the way shit is. I don't believe that, you know, when I say these things, I don't believe that socialism is the answer. I believe that socialism is a part of the answer. But a big part of the answer is empathy. And saying, you know what? It's not okay that we're doing this, so we need to do better. Maybe China should bring a lot of their innovations here and straighten this shit out, lol. I don't think we should be, again, I'm no expert on this topic, but I don't think China is the world leader for doing right by the environment. Like, isn't like the South China Sea, like, literally, like, uninhabitable? Like, you jump into that and you're probably going to have all kinds of horrible diseases that you've never even learned the spelling of before. I may be 100% wrong on that. I might be reading some, like, shitty propaganda textbook from, like, you know, years ago, and just that's in my brain. But my understanding is China does not have a good record on environment. And because China is, contrary to the fact that they are super communist, they are super capitalist. It's a weird thing. Like China's whole thing is very different than Russia during the Soviet Union. It's very different than, you know, South American socialist movements. That's why people are always like, you know, communism never works. Well, that's true. Neither does capitalism. And we haven't really had a huge number of reasonable hotbeds to take valid understanding from. So, no, Russian communism was not a good thing. Chinese communism is not a good thing. A lot of the ineffective socialist revolutions in Africa and South America, were bad. The ones that have been effective, particularly in like South America, have been good, but they're not applicable because of the very serious difference in the two countries. They make that flower thing that takes water out of the air, didn't they? They made that flower thing that takes water out of the air, didn't they? I don't know anything about that. They may very well have, but they still have a huge problem with the environmental impact. Huge. I mean, if you think about like data mining and things like that, or not like Bitcoin mining and stuff, and the energy consumption, China is huge in energy consumption, and that's like a direct pollution correlation. We keep thinking that, and I'm not talking about you, Sugar. Don't get me wrong on that one, but we keep thinking that like computing power doesn't translate to environmental destruction, but like, yeah, it fucking does. Energy is used, and when you're doing like cryptocurrency and stuff, and you're heavily utilizing servers, you're putting wear and tear on servers, which means more parts are required. But just the energy consumption alone is huge, and businesses understand this, but they don't talk about it because everyone wants to be a cloud person. Everyone wants to cloud things, and the cloud is a massive energy consumer. So I don't know anything about this flower thing that takes water out of the air. I mean, we have done a lot of really interesting and unique things, whether it's we're talking about alternative energy or like with recaptured. I can't think of what the term for it is, but where they pump CO2 into storage containers, and in some cases, I think they've done experiments with like underground flora and fauna that they can pump CO2 into these spaces that are full of this particular kind of fauna, that then the normal process of what is it where plants do it but they breathe backwards. Why can't my brain think of that? The thing where they breathe in CO2 and they exhale O2, which they do during the day, and at night it's the opposite. It's the whole lungs of the world thing. Anyways, the theory being maybe we can put these kinds of plants that will be good at that into the space where we can pump CO2 in and just get them to do that. Of course, comes with its own challenges and its own problems. They didn't just declare cryptocurrency illegal, or didn't they just declare cryptocurrency illegal as well? Did they? Jesus, I'm out of touch. Oh, in China. Potentially. I haven't heard anything about that. But yeah, cryptocurrency is... what a fucking racket. God, I wish I was a brilliant sociopath. Because I remember seeing like, when Bitcoin was first starting out and just being like, that's fucking stupid. And what I need to do is A, amputate the part of me that's good. And B, every time I go, that's fucking stupid, I should be like, and therefore I can make money on it. Like, I don't know how, but you can make money on everything dumb. Bitcoin, when it came out, I was like, so basically these are logical results of an algorithmic calculation that have no actual value and chew up a bunch of resources, and there's just this perceived value that, oh, well, there's only so many possible Bitcoins, and therefore it's worth $11 gagooglion today. And so I can, pay and have, pay one Bitcoin to have 6 guys bumped off or something. I was like, that's the stupidest shit I've ever heard, aside from the current sovereign currency concept, which is stupid shit, but it's a shared delusion. Yeah, they may have. Let's just quickly, let me just eyeball, because now I'm curious. Oh, I see you're sending me a link, which is exactly what I was about to search for. So let's fade on over. And NPR, lefties. All right, China announced a ban on cryptocurrency transactions, latest in a series of crackdowns on virtual money that comes as countries around the world are considering tougher regulations of their own. China is banning cryptocurrency transactions as NPR's Daniel Gura reports. It's sending shockwaves through a sector valued at $2 trillion that's been largely free from government interference. Part of cryptocurrency's popularity stems from the fact that the digital asset is free from government control and it really hasn't been regulated. That's appealing to many Chinese citizens, but Chinese leaders have spent years trying to crack down on crypto. Winston Ma teaches securities law at NYU, and he says Friday's announcement is an escalation. Implication will be profound and major. I'm just going to skip down a little bit. Chinese government's desire to make sure that the payment system does not get entirely managed by the private sector, targeting big companies that have pioneered digital payments, including Alibaba and WeChat, and China is developing a digital currency, or digital version of its own currency. The Prasad says lawmakers and regulators around the world will pay close attention to the rules China has in place. That's interesting. I was unaware of this, and that is fascinating. I am more than on board with the idea of making serious changes to how we do cryptocurrency, because it's not just the Wild West. Like, the Wild West is so much not like it's so fucking bad. To me, I really look at it like, because it's not backed by a large enough organization, it's basically backed by a bunch of people. It's like the ultimate Ponzi scheme, because eventually it will not be worth the, like we see the graph, and it's like, starts off down here and it moves, it's up and little spikes along the way or whatever. Eventually it's going to be worthless. That's kind of how this shit goes. And then someone will be left holding the bag. Someone will be left having lost a whole shit ton of money. I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be involved in it at all. But certainly if I was going to be involved, I would rather be the guy that started it at the very beginning and made $1 bajillion and then, left. I love when you see, interviews or whatever with Bitcoin billionaire Ricky Swabal. And it's just some fucking kid who's like, yes, I purchased a Bitcoin, and then I was able to purchase several Bitcoins. And before I knew it, because of factors completely unrelated to my knowledge or experience, I had a lot of money. Wow. This person has a lot to bring to the table, because he was able to buy a thing once. It ties back to the King Ralph thing, right? The faith fails, the crypto fails. Absolutely. And we see that already in little tiny, like when people make their own little tokens and they, hawk them on all their, hey guys, everyone's going to get rich. You just got to buy UGG coins. And then everyone buys UGG coins and they immediately sell all their UGG coins because they're a piece of shit. And then the UGG coins go in the toilet and they're like, oh, that sucks, man. I guess you didn't have faith in the currency. That's so weird. Yeah, you dumped all your fucking tokens, dude. You're the one that didn't have faith. What was I saying? I don't remember. Yeah, it was probably really deep and insightful, though. Because that's what I do. Drinking my Lucky Lager. Which is warm, by the way. So one thing I like about Lucky Lager is it's actually not horrible warm. It's not great. Cold Lucky is always way better. But having worked in bars for all my life, there is something about warm beer that's not as horrible as people think. And having teenage kids in my house, I prefer to keep my beer not in the fridge where any little prying fingers can sticky their way onto it. Because they do. It's better to keep it locked in my room under a pile of dragons. Smaug, but of Lucky. All right. Well, you know what? I've babbled for, I think, plenty of the day. I still need to go over to my friend's house and do the mowing of her lawn, because that's the kind of person I am. I have a friend. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Ties back to Klein. Ralph Klein, the greatest premier Alberta ever had, who was only great because oil prices went up and he got lots of royalty revenue and was like, hey, look at the thing I did. Unless he was specifically capable of controlling the global market on oil, which I feel like was outside of the realm of the premier of Alberta, then in fact he is a full of shit liar, garbage pants, and therefore taking credit. It's like the stolen valor, but like of the stock market. I don't know. Fuck line. Fuck him hard. Don't like him. Never liked him. Glad he's dead. Oh, that's the other thing we talked about. My dead neighbor. So it all worked out. It was a good stream. We talked about a lot of dead people. All right. I think that's probably going to be it for me. For those that are watching, the bajillions of people watching around the world, thank you for paying attention and hanging out with me for a few hours here. And I hope that, feel free to click that follow button and, all that stuff. Don't send me money, but just, if you want to follow, that's cool. And, yeah, it'll be, we'll do this again. Either way, thank you for watching, and I'm going to hit stop